Did you know that 35% of fuel economy can be attributed to your driving habits? Use the Scan Gauge KR to maximize your drive efficiency. The Scan Gauge KR has built-in and programmable digital gauges that allow you to read instant fuel mileage, average fuel economy, and dozens more gauges as you drive. Get to know your truck and learn how you can improve your fuel costs and keep your money in your pocket where it belongs. Drive smarter and master the journey. Get yours today at letstruck.com or call our Tribe Care team at 855-800-FUEL. That's 855-800-3835.
Your money, your taxes, your truck, and your road to success in the trucking industry. This is Trucking Business and Beyond, the show that puts the money where it belongs, back in your pocket.
Good morning, you beautiful bunch of fuckers, and welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is Friday, October 18th. It's going to be a free-for-all today. Henry's here with me. Joel is not going to make it. It looks like he has meetings all day. So phone lines are open. Jump in and join us, 855-950-3835. Or hit that call now button on your app. We're going to jump in and get started. Henry, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin.
You know, I love the fact that all of my co-hosts work full-time doing the things we have them on the show for. Like you. You know, you're doing fuel mileage every day and maintenance and all these things. So, you know, we get a great perspective from that. And all of my co-hosts, it's like that. But boy, sometimes keeping a show schedule, it's like herding cats. I never know when somebody's going to show up and when they aren't.
Right.
But that's okay.
Yep, I'm driving a little bit of a solemn day. I just found out probably 3 minutes before the show started that my best friend growing up, we're born about a week and a half away from each other, just passed away of pancreatic cancer. It all went down in like a week and a half.
Henry, I can't tell you how sorry I am to hear that. And that story has happened way too many times. Exactly that. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer by the time it's discovered, and then people are dead in a very short period of time.
Yep.
That's not normal. I mean, cancer is not normal, but this is not normal. This is a new pattern. And there are a lot of theories about what caused it. But when you look at it, you know, that was kind of my topic today, is about, I just spent a couple days going over numbers on different things. Numbers that we kind of have to rely on the government to put together, unfortunately. And there's been a pretty clear pattern over the last several years. They bring out numbers and they, you know, if you watch the economy, you know when they report certain things. I mean, I watch the economy and I know when the jobs numbers are coming out, when the unemployment numbers are coming out. I watch for that stuff. That's how you kind of keep an eye on what the economy's doing. The problem we have is the government releases the numbers on the day they're supposed to. And I'm always a little surprised. The jobs numbers that just came out a week or so ago were higher than anybody expected. And, you know, in certain economies, you that's not a big deal. You know, if you know the economy is kind of picking up steam and things are looking good, that's when you expect the numbers to come in maybe better than what are predicted. If the economy is kind of tanking and things aren't doing so great, the typical pattern is the numbers will probably come in worse than what people expected. But that's not what's been happening. Except here's the problem. At some point in the future, they will come back and tell us, oops, we have to revise those numbers. But they wait like 3 or 4 months. And by the time they bring out the real numbers, nobody's paying attention anymore. And I'm seeing this as a pattern. And I mention it now because it's a pattern about the vaccine results. They have hidden those numbers, lied about them. You can't get good data. When we finally do get data from private sources, it doesn't come close to matching what the government's been telling us. And they do it on these economic numbers. I actually went back through the numbers after they revised them, because once they wait 3 or 4 months and everybody forgets about that, we're looking forward to the next set of numbers coming out, then they go revise these, but we kind of ignore it because we're already 3 months past that and we're looking at other things. But I went back and took all of their revised numbers, because this happens every month, and I plugged in the real numbers going backwards. We've been in a recession for almost 3 years by the numbers. We have
Imagine that.
We have a clear definition of what a recession is by the economic numbers, and we had touched those numbers a little bit a couple of years ago, and they said, "Oh, yeah, we're in a recession," and then everybody stopped talking about it. Well, if you just run the real numbers, we've been in a recession for quite a while. Here's the other thing. And they do it on inflation all the time. The inflation numbers that they just brought out, the most recent, they've already been revised. They were wrong. And they were wrong in the way you would expect them to be wrong. The government said, "Oh, look, inflation went down." No, it didn't. It didn't in the first place. When they say that, they haven't been accurate every month. They say, "Oh, look, inflation went down." No, the correct sentence would be, the rate of inflation went down. Oh. All right. This happened yesterday.
Ready
just
to
about
connect.
this exact
Click
same time
connect
in
to
the
show now.
For some reason, I keep losing
Connected
my
as the
connection.
host. Welcome, host. You are now in the host room and can manage your callers from the Call-in Studio web interface. Audio recording is on.
You see what happens, Henry? I start talking about this stuff and my internet gets turned off.
Is that what happened?
That's what happened. Yeah, they turned off my internet. I had to go to my
Well, what I was saying, Kevin, was all that stuff drives me crazy, like cost of living. Okay, and then they give cost of living raises, which just raises the cost of living.
Correct.
You know,
Right, and they're
it
basing
should
it
be
on
merit raises because you figured out how to make something better, whatever. Houses should not go up in value. Keep everything level there so you know where you are in the playing field. And to me,
No, we are having a real problem with our connection. I have lost my connection again.
Ready to connect. Click connect to show now. You are connected as the host. Welcome, host. You are now in the host room and can manage your callers from the Call-in Studio web interface. Audio recording is on.
Boy, I really pissed off
you back?
somebody. I really pissed off somebody today.
But yeah, all that stuff. Even when they start talking about minimum wage, why not make it $100 an hour? It doesn't matter. $100 an hour would be poverty.
Why not make it zero?
You can't. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
No matter what it is, that
Right.
number is going to be poverty. Somebody's going to
Correct.
be at the bottom.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to be at the top. You can't correct that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The other thing that it kind of struck me when I was doing these numbers, if we look at the trucking industry and the rates, our rates have been going down for about 2 years now, hasn't it? It's been about 2 years, 2.5.
What I'm hearing from other folks, I've been pretty fortunate in that arena.
Yeah, a lot of my listeners have been, but we watch the numbers. We do it every week, and I think it's been about 2 or 2.5 years. The rates have been on the way down. They kind of feel like I hope they're at a bottom. I mean, our spot market rates are down in the dollar range. And now Atri came out last year with their cost for a fleet to run a truck's like $228 a mile. Somebody else came out last week, and I forget what group this was. They're claiming the cost of running a truck is $272 a mile. That math just doesn't work.
No. Well, when I've been nearly 100% contract rate for almost 16 years now,
Wow.
which when the spot market was doing really, really good, yeah, I was like, do I need to jump ship? No, it always turns around, and
Yeah,
it did.
you
And
you get a little FOMO when that happens because you'd like to go out there and get those rates, but you're smart enough to know it's a short time period and it's not going to last, and that's just how it goes. And we know what the pattern is. It's amazing to me people still don't get this. If rates get high enough, it encourages people to get into the business. It encourages people in the business to expand and buy more trucks and hire more drivers. And that is what will bring the rates down to where they normally are. That's the pattern. It's never going to
right,
be different. If you're making a lot of money in any industry, any segment, people will flock to that industry or that segment and it will equal out. That's how it always works.
and everything's that way. One of the
Right.
observations that I make from driving out across our highways, if there's generally speaking, if there's somebody selling sheds, there won't be somebody very far down the road that's also selling sheds.
Right.
If there's a Home Depot around, there's a Lowe's real nearby, and possibly a Menards yet.
Correct.
You know,
And
because
the three
nobody's going to let somebody make all the money.
yeah, the three big drugstore chains will almost always be on three corners of the same intersection.
Or or convenience stores, with the gasoline, they'll be on all four corners.
Right. Or how about every town, city has auto row, right? All the car dealers are on the same street just about.
Right. And then when you start digging deeper into it, much like the automotive industry, you look at how much of it in our country started up around Michigan, and then you find out the connections that, well, Ford really started Cadillac, and the Dodge brothers funded the Ford Motor Company getting started,
Right.
and the profits they made off of that is what started Dodge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Funny how
Interesting stuff.
competition works that way, isn't it?
Yeah, and I say all the time, I'm a big believer in competition. We need more competition, not less. The one point that I was looking at, we always talk about the fact that trucking, the trucking industry, transportation is what they call a leading economic indicator. So when financial analysts try to figure out what's going on with the economy, they look at a lot of different things. And we have what are called leading indicators, we have what are called trailing indicators. And a leading indicator is simply a number that number is likely to lead the direction of where the economy is going. And trucking is a
Right.
leading economic indicator. If trucking is picking up,
The,
the economy will pick up shortly afterwards. If trucking is on its way
the,
down,
the,
go ahead.
the one I heard that trucking looks at in some cases is corrugated cardboard sales
Yeah,
and pallets,
yeah,
because that comes before the trucking.
correct. Yeah, and these numbers aren't exact science, but they're pretty darn good indicators. We've been using them a long time. Well, based on the revised numbers, I think we've been in a recession for a while, although nobody's been saying that. And if you look at trucking, trucking's pattern is a recession. We're watching it. The rates were really high. They started to come down. They're continuing to come down. Volumes are down. Trucking companies are going out of business. And yet we're all, and here's the other confounding factor here. The stock market has never reacted to any of this. The stock market is still setting records. And I think that's what confuses a lot of people or makes them believe that the economy is better than it is. There's a weird disconnect this time between the stock market and what the real numbers are telling us.
Right. And when the other thing, I've been doing it long enough, when the spot market and all that stuff really flies up in a hurry, it usually crashes equally hard on the other side.
Correct. Yeah. And we also know the longer we have a bear market, not in the stock market per se, but a good economy, a growing economy, the longer we have a growing economy, the more likely the recession will be deeper and longer. I mean, those are just the kind of patterns you see, except that's not playing out yet here. There's just a lot of confusing factors. We for a couple of years, we said the confusing factor was all the money the government released during COVID, all the incentives, all the
Right.
extra money, all the loans, all the grants, all the PPE money, all of that stuff. But and we don't know how that really affects an economy in detail. We know that it will drive up inflation. It did that, but we don't.
No, yeah.
We don't have a lot of history. So is that still what we're dealing with? It doesn't feel like it should be. It feels like we should have washed that out of the system by now. But it's
You
just
would
hard.
think.
It's just hard to say. And now I'm wondering.
And trucking to me is funny though, and I don't know if it's just because you don't hear from them, but the only people it seems most time you hear from are the ones that are doing really well, or the ones that are doing really bad. That
That's
middle
usually the
ground is
case.
unrepresented that hard on
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah, no, that's true, and that's usually the case. Somebody, they're either on social media, and that's another new thing. It's grown so much over the last several years that now we have new information that we didn't have. We're hearing from individuals more than we used to. And that's one of the other things I do. I try to correlate what I'm hearing from the government or the economists or whoever with what I see on social media. And you're right. When it comes to social media,
Right.
somebody's either on there bragging that they just beat the broker up and got $5 a mile, or the brokers are all crooks and this is all a scam. I mean, those are the two you hear from.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it must be doing pretty good because when I got up this morning at the truck stop, and it was actually at one that's still called a truck stop, and it was 58 degrees, and almost every truck in the parking lot was running all night.
Yeah, I know. I know.
So they must be doing all right because I'm doing well, and I didn't have mine running. I didn't even have my battery-powered system turned on.
Yeah. No, I get it. Hey, the calls are starting to pile up on us, so we should probably jump in and start taking them. Let's go to Ohio. Brandon. Good morning.
Yes, sir. How you doing?
Doing good.
I called in to talk about some information that's really hard to get a hold of that has to do with the performance of our engines.
Okay.
And so what I was looking for, and I don't know if any of your listeners might have this kind of information, but it's something called brake-specific fuel consumption. And it's basically a map of where your throttle position for what RPM is going to give you the best amount of power for the amount of fuel that you're using.
So I've heard the term brake-specific fuel consumption. Don't we also use a brake-specific horsepower? Isn't that also a calculation we can run?
Yeah, I've seen the figures on that.
I've looked at this. I've kind of researched this topic, and I couldn't come up with any way that map was really going to help me. And maybe I'm just not understanding it correctly.
Well, Kevin, on that, okay, where it makes the most power for the least amount of fuel isn't necessarily, do you need that much power to get down the road?
I think that's
so you don't necessarily want to be there.
That's
so
what
to
I
me,
kept,
that's the conundrum on that.
Right. That's what I kept coming up with. If you were to use this on a flat level track you got to get rid of all the variables. The wind, the road surface can change this. There's so many other variables that there's nothing we could do to keep ourselves in that peak anyway. And that was my problem with this. I couldn't figure out any way to use the data to change anything that would make any kind of an improvement. And I thought maybe I'm just not understanding it.
And as a general rule right now, Kevin, with what I'm seeing from the OEMs, they won't let you go too far on the gear to where it wouldn't work. But generally on the efficiency side, if you go as far as they'll let you go, you're probably there.
Yeah. So, Brandon, have you figured out how? So, if we can find this map for a specific engine, how would we use it? What would it help us figure out?
Right. So you take into account all these factors that you were mentioning before: wind, terrain, whatnot, and you figure out, well, I know that for the most of my drive, I'm going to need about 200 horsepower, but I'm going to get some hills every now and then, so I'm going to need some room above, for the additional torque. And you can look on the map, and some of these maps have something, they have horsepower curves on the map as well. And you can look up that 200 horsepower curve, find a place where it's reasonably close to the higher efficiency zone, yet to the right of it, so that there's plenty of room above for more torque, because the location of the higher efficiency tends to be in the lower RPM area.
So let me ask you something right there before we go on to another concept. I want to stick on that concept right there.
Sure.
I'm thinking that without the specific map that you're talking about, that this is what we've been doing for a couple of decades anyway, with all of our gearing changes and all the things we do, but we're really doing it from our real world experience. But we've found that on this particular engine, this is the best drivetrain, this gear set, this tire size, because at this speed range we're going to run, we get our best fuel economy. I'm assuming that's what the map would tell us.
Right.
I think we've been doing it all these years from our own experience.
Yeah. And my question more has to do with some of the newer engines. So if I were to go out to the used truck market and pick up a truck with 500,000 miles, it's 4 or 5 years old, whatnot, and that's a fairly newer engine with a fairly newer aerodynamic profile on it. Likely that truck was part of some fleet that had some niche use. Sometimes it's general use, but most of the time it's niche use. And so how do I know that this prospective truck that I'm looking at is geared up the way that I need it to be for the way that I drive and where I go?
Well, again, and I'm not saying this map couldn't help, and I'm interested in exploring it. Again, I've looked at it in the past. I haven't been able to figure out how to use it, but we only have, how many engine choices do we have? We don't have that many. We kind of know where those engines like to run and get their best fuel economy and their best performance. It's what we talk about every week on this show. I'm not sure that we would get any closer or be any more accurate with this map. We can tell you that.
And if you're in
the Volvo,
if you're in the used market,
go ahead, Henry.
If you're in the used market, somewhat, it's pretty cost prohibitive to change it and get the ROI. But if you look at like fleets like Nussbaum that are as close to perfect as you're going to get, just about from a fleet.
Yeah, and that's
emulate what they're doing.
Yeah, or buy their trucks. That's where I was going to go with this. If you're on the used market, it is almost cost prohibitive these days to try to change your driveline. It's really expensive. And some of these driveline tweaks are only going to pick you up a little bit of fuel economy. It's hard to get a payback on them. You said something I want to go back to. You said when you're looking at used trucks that it was probably used for a niche. But I feel like it's the exact opposite. 95% of the trucks on the used market today were not spec'd for any kind of a niche. It's just everybody copying what they've always done and what everybody else has always done. That's our biggest complaint, is that it's hard to find well-spec'd used trucks because the industry doesn't spec trucks well. They never have. Everybody just does what they've always done, or does what everybody else does, or buys what's on the lot. So I don't know. What are you talking about when you think that all these used trucks were spec'd for a specific niche?
Yeah. So, for example, the truck that I have right now, it's spec'd out to be very light. It has a smaller engine. It's an MP7 engine. And this thing is meant for heavy cargo one way, empty the other way. And I found this out because I looked up the company who previously owned it, and that's the kind of cargo that they run. And I'm also thinking about like Amazon trucks.
So let me
Well,
hold on.
they're probably going to be.
Let me address the one you just said. So all I heard really, as far as specs go, was this company goes lightweight because they're paid on weight. And that is a common spec. That's the one people understand. They know how to lightweight a truck when their revenue depends on it. But that is not the average truck on the market. The average truck on the market is owned by a big fleet that's probably doing dry van or very basic flatbed, and they're all running about the same generic specs.
Okay.
There's a few of them that get out there on the edge, like Maverick gets pretty out there on the edge as far as flatbed.
Yeah,
but,
there are a few,
but
it's
and when I say on the edge, in a good way.
Correct, right. They're actually out there speccing trucks in a way that makes sense. But that's the small part of the market. The big part of the market doesn't do this. That's why it's so hard for us to find well-specced used trucks.
And that's something else that always amazed me, and sort of by accident, the people that build those niche trucks that we're talking about for the heavy, that hauling heavy bulk and one way empty, by default, they kind of get it right.
Hey, yeah.
Except for the aero side, because they'll leave the aero off because it saves a few more pounds.
Correct.
But, the few pounds they saved, they burnt 20 more gallons of fuel, which cut their capacity anyway. So,
hey Brandon,
to me, they get blinders on and miss the aero side.
Yeah, I agree with that, Brandon. I have a question for you. Have you ever tried using a brake-specific fuel consumption calculator?
Not a calculator. I would need a dyno for something like that.
No, again, I'm just doing this on the fly as we're standing here talking. I'm looking at one online right now. You fill in the fields and it'll calculate.
You mean? No. I mean, I don't. I wouldn't have that kind of information. Like, I don't know the live fuel consumption of my truck. All I know is that, like, not accurately, at least.
Yeah, and this is what I ran into when I and it was probably a decade ago that I looked at some of this stuff, maybe even longer than that now. And that's what I ran into. This is a really specific, complicated calculation that you have to eliminate almost all the variables. It is something that's done on a dyno and is almost impossible to recreate in the real world.
Yeah, you know where that'd be the most useful, Kevin, is if you had a farm tractor pulling a plow.
So consistent, right? That I could see something like that. We can eliminate almost all the variables in a situation like that.
I could think of somebody running north-south in the valley in California where the diesel is very expensive compared to DEF. And so you can afford to go into the higher efficiency range, which produces more NOx, and the payoff of your DEF usage versus your diesel is better. And I would anticipate that the most of the rest of the fleets in the country don't do that, but that would be a place where you could benefit from a change.
Yeah, so you lost me on that one. I've never sat down and figured out how to spec a truck to either consume more fuel or consume more DEF, unless you've got me completely lost on that one.
Right. Yeah, I made a leap there. So when you get into the higher efficiency areas of the engine, they tend to produce more NOx as well because it's more efficient because it's hotter.
Well, correct.
And
right.
What this does, this increases your DEF consumption. Now, there's a trade-off there. You can actually look these up. There's a sort of trade-off, like a sweet spot, so to speak. But if your diesel is so much more expensive than DEF, then you can go in another direction. You know what I mean?
No,
Like you can
And,
compare
and there's
efficiency
not
and
that
use
much
more depth.
difference going from 300 mile to the gallon on DEF to going to 180 mile to the gallon cost wise. It
that's
doesn't change it that much.
That's my point on this. We are splitting atoms to try to save tenths of a penny sometimes here. I mean, I just don't see,
And-
this is a lot of complicated calculation with a ton of room for error. I'm not even sure how we would do some of this, and I don't see the gain. I mean, we don't
And-
even, we are finally now putting into fuel gauges, we are putting a calculator for DEF. You'll be able to compare your DEF consumption to your fuel consumption. The reason we did it, not once did I think we were going to save anybody any money with this. The reason we did it is because I think it's a good diagnostic tool. That's my, if I can look at fuel consumption and DEF consumption together and as a percentage, I can foresee engine issues coming before they happen. That was my point of doing that, was it's a good diagnostic
That's a good
tool.
idea.
Yeah, it's a good diagnostic tool, but I couldn't see where we could ever save enough money to make any of this worth it on DEF. It's just not a big enough expense.
And Kevin, it's been going that way as far as getting more efficiency out of the engines. The earlier DD15s that I ran, I was getting as high as 575 mile to the gallon on my DEF.
Wow.
Now I'm around 180.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a huge change, but in the bottom line, it's just not much.
But you know, when I started, I was at 8 mile to the gallon for lifetime. So
yeah, you know, here's one of the ways we can look at this. I know it's a little different on a truck, but not really. The Sprinter we have is a diesel. It needs DEF. You don't even have to put DEF in that thing once a year. I mean, that's
No
how
kidding.
little DEF that thing uses. The light just came on the other day, so I know we're low, and I don't even worry about it, because even when you're low, you probably have a month. But I was trying to remember the last time I put DEF in it, and I know it's been a year.
Yeah, I recall.
That's something that there is shopping around, is the variance on DEF. It's everywhere from $4.50 a gallon at the pump to $2 a gallon.
That's crazy. Yeah. Well, you know, that's
There's a
propane was like that. When I was doing all the testing, could we save any money using propane injection? I was just shocked at the price differences in propane. I could get there, if you shopped around, I could get it delivered to the yard every night, because the truck we were testing did a day run and came back every day. So when we were doing the fuel mileage testing, we fueled it every night and we topped off the propane every night. So we could calculate usage every single day. And I was shocked that I was getting it delivered to the truck for about half of what it was costing on the street sometimes.
Yeah, there's a big variable with DEF.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, where I was able to get it to $2 a gallon, they just went up to $2.79, which has me wanting to find another place. But
yeah,
there's a
Brandon,
big variable on that.
Brandon, I'm not trying to talk you out of this or say you're wrong. I don't understand it enough to say you're wrong. There may be some valuable data in here somewhere. That's why I'm trying to question and see. Because when I looked at it, I couldn't find it. I couldn't find a way to use this data that would change anything I was doing.
Well, Brandon, I'll take it a different way. There's the data you're talking about is right, and this is something that but it'll end up giving you data paralysis, because a lot of it will be something you can't do anything about. And pretty much the way they're speccing them, and the fleets that are better on fuel mileage, that's where I'd look. They're usually right now, just basically across the brands I know, gearing them as tall as they can be is going to put you pretty close to right.
And that's a pretty good general rule of thumb. And I could also say this, you know, if you start using this map and getting really specific, we might find out that maybe, and I'm just going to throw out some numbers here because differentials are all over the board anymore, but you'll get the point. Maybe we'll figure out that a 217 gear is slightly better than a 208 in this specific truck. We've played around with them enough to know it's not going to matter. And if it does matter, you're not going to be able to figure out if it mattered in the right way or the wrong way. Because again, we're calculating this minus all of the variables. And when we put the variables in, that other gear ratio just might work out to be not as good in the real world. So I think with all of our experience testing, and we continue to do this all the time, and every time a new engine comes out or a new change, we go back and we do it again. I'm not sure that we're going to do any better with more data.
I have another question for you on this topic.
Sure.
If I'm running most of my stuff around the Indiana, Illinois kind of area where it's usually fairly level, but with a little bit of hills and some wind, would you recommend going with a 13 speed with overdrive, or would you recommend something like just a direct drive top gear?
Well, here's one of the things I can say just in general. Henry, help me out with this. Are there any really smart 13 speeds on the market?
I don't know.
No.
I did. So what I'm getting at, Brandon, is one of the things.
Well, no, I shouldn't say that. Volvo has a 13 speed that's
right.
pretty darn good.
You can do a 13 or a 12, a 13 or a 14 with Volvo. That's right. But when I hear 13 speed, Brandon, here's the point I'm getting to. If I hear 13 or 18, I'm thinking old legacy transmissions, dual counter shaft, all of that stuff where we want to run in direct as often as we can. All the newer transmissions, the smart transmissions, the iShift, the Freightliner's transmission, they're usually 12 speeds.
DC12.
Yeah, they usually settle on a 12 speed. It's the new modern. It's not a double counter shaft. We don't have all that oil churn. And so when I hear 13 speed, my answer is almost always no, because I'm thinking we're talking about those old legacy transmissions. Now, if it was a 13 speed iShift, okay, that's fine. So the real thing about transmissions today is we want the new technology, not the old legacy transmissions.
Well, I was thinking more along the lines of, is my top gear direct drive or overdrive?
Well, I know, and this is where it gets confusing, and we talk about that all the time. If I am talking to somebody with a early 2000s pre-emission truck, and there's still a lot of them, we deal with them all the time, we want to run those trucks in direct as our primary gear because it is our most efficient gear. If we go from direct to overdrive in those old dual counter shaft transmissions, I think I've seen numbers you could lose up to 3% in fuel economy. You look at the new counter single.
Not the case anymore.
It's almost 1% now, and that is made up by the fact that you've got better gearing.
Yeah.
So now we don't really distinguish between, do we want to run in direct because it's the most efficient? Now we have the ability. This is what we're so excited about, is we're now speccing trucks that can run highway speeds in 3 gears efficiently. That's the beauty of these new drive lines we're setting up. If you have all kinds of time and you can run at 55 to 58 miles an hour, you can actually do it in an underdrive gear and be efficient. Or if you want to go a little faster, we can move up to a direct drive gear, maybe get up into the 65, 70 range, and then we can go to an overdrive and be 70 plus and still be efficient. Now, every time we go faster, we are going to lose fuel economy, but we're going to be as efficient as we can at those speeds.
In addition to that, having a setup like that, Kevin, you also have a gear that you run on the flat ground, and you got a gear that you run uphill.
Right.
You know this.
Right. Or sometimes a gear you run loaded and a gear you run empty.
Exactly.
I did not know that they got so good with these transmissions that you lost very little power by going out of direct drive.
It's about 1% on the iShift.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
It is amazing.
It's
It
the
really
same way
is.
with the DT12. It's nearly nothing, and you gain more by having the gearing you need than you
Right,
would have the other way.
right.
Well, that really opens up your options, doesn't it?
It does, and that's
Well,
why
yeah.
we're excited about it. But it also creates a lot of conversations like this. I mean, Joel and Henry had to get me to understand this in the beginning. I was still stuck in that. Oh no, what do you mean you're going to run in overdrive? What are you, crazy? We need to be in direct drive. Well, yeah, on those trucks that we're dealing with, that's exactly right, but it's not anymore. So now, and we've had this conversation. My show gets more and more complicated every year because, in a sense, I'm dealing with three completely different truck setups. I still deal with guys that have mechanical engines. I mean, we got to go way back on how we do things. Then we have all those pre-emission electronic engines that we've loved for years. We spec those a certain way. Now, all the new modern engines and the new modern drive lines, we have to do things very differently. And it's confusing to people. So we always have to stop and try to explain this is why we can spec to run in overdrive, because we don't have that 3% loss anymore.
And then top that off, Kevin, it was pretty common to be right in around a 0.73 overdrive.
Yeah, exactly.
And now most everything's 0.78.
Correct. So yeah. Yeah. So and here's another one. You know, how many years, if you listen to this show, how many years did we talk about boost pressure? In some trucks, boost pressure is just about as accurate as a fuel mileage gauge. In the newer trucks, it's not accurate at all. You can't even look at boost pressure anymore and think about fuel economy.
Yep. Sort of, kind of on that one. Still, when the boost goes down, the mileage still goes up. But yeah.
Not always.
But in comparison to what you were doing,
right?
If you were dropping a gear,
yeah,
you don't have to drop a gear to keep it down.
It used to be a really accurate, and you didn't even have to think about it. There were like no exceptions. More boost, you're using more fuel. Less boost, using less fuel. It's not the case anymore with variable geometry turbos and all the newer technologies. There's just not that direct correlation anymore.
Well, and that's funny too. I used to use, for training drivers on the engine reports, the average load factor page.
Right.
Number, right? That was one of my ones I really liked. Well, now, like this one, which is 203 overall, because it's a 261 with a 0.78 overdrive.
Yeah.
From where my average load factor is much higher than it was. But my fuel mileage is better, which goes backwards from what you used to look at.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, Brandon, this is why, throwing in another calculation like this, it really starts to get complicated. Fuel mileage has become way more complicated in the last 10 years than it used to be.
Well, sir, I really appreciate your insights on this.
Yeah.
So Brandon, when you're looking at used trucks, like if you were looking at Detroit, pretty much you want to look at a 264 overdrive, which makes you about 205 overall, or a 216 direct. That's what you're going to find on the used market. You're not going to find anything that's going to top that, because there isn't. That's as far as you can go.
So
the ones I don't like the ones I don't like so much is the 285 overdrive and the 228 overdrive, because it's not good at either. It's not good at pulling in high gear, and it's not far enough to be downsped in high gear. So it does neither well. So that's why I've called that gear set tween. It's right in the middle of the two. It'll work. It's not the end of the world bad, but as far as really getting it right.
And that's kind of where we'll go back to this calculation again, the brake specific fuel consumption. it may give us a number that we just can't create anyway. I mean, we only have so many gear sets to choose from. They'll only allow us to put certain gear sets into a drive line. And I'm going to say this, I think we've found the best for each engine and driveline setup. There are only so many options, and we've tried enough of them in so many different ways. We kind of know, like Henry just said, these two work really well. If you stray from that even a little bit, it's not as good. It's not the end of the world. It still could be a fairly efficient truck, but it's almost like I think we've really kind of nailed this on most of the engines on the market. Now, the International engine is brand new. We think we have a pretty good idea because its architecture is now very similar to the Volvo and the Freightliner engine. So I think we're going to be pretty good at speccing it in the beginning, but we might find that somewhere in there we're going to end up tweaking it a little bit.
Okay, cool.
All right.
But
Good
yeah,
stuff.
Brandon, if I'm looking at used to see where specs are, I'm looking at how Nussbaum does theirs, and in flatbed, I'm looking at how Maverick does theirs.
Yeah, I've been
Nussbaum.
recommending Maverick's trucks for about 15 years.
Yep.
All right, well, I'll take a look at that then.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Henry, Maverick was one of the first companies I remember running the 264 setup like we had been doing for years.
Right. Yeah, but yeah, they're
and that's a
doing
ways back.
264 now with an overdrive.
Correct. Back then it was the Series 60 264 with the direct drive, and nobody else was doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Let's go to Ohio. John, welcome.
Good morning, Kevin. First off, God bless you and your entire team and all your guests for all the information you've provided me. It's been nothing but pleasure the entire time you've been on the air, since that stupid company in New York that you left up to this podcast that you've generated. Thank you.
They did us
Thank
all a
you
favor.
from the bottom of my heart.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for your support.
My mother, she got diagnosed with some kidney stones. Really wasn't even kidney stones. It was actually a calcium blockage in between her kidney and her bladder. She told me that she was going to the hospital. I said, okay. She got some help, but Kevin, I immediately told her, start with the vitamin D. You know, get that vitamin D. Vitamin D metabolizes that calcium, and it will help you. And she initially started kicking because I'm her son, and what do I know? But we eventually, we eventually got to. Am I there?
Yeah,
can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say I have another idea for you.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
If you want to help her make this simple, because you were on the right track. Vitamin D, absolute first step, no doubt. Then once we get the vitamin D, and now we got to get our mineral balance correct, and we've got to get all the cofactors working right so that the vitamin D and the calcium go where we need them and not where we don't want them, like is what's happening with her now, without overwhelming her with a bunch of different supplements and, ideas. And here's why. The one product we have that fixes this on its own and really simplifies things, buy her a tub of or a bag of Cardio Miracle.
It's already ordered in the mail.
Look at you. Look at you. You already got it figured out.
Kevin, I've been around you too long. I've been listening, I've been paying attention, and I've got Cardio Miracle coming, Monkey Brittle, beef sticks, all that. You've already sent it out to me.
Awesome, good job.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we've got a visit with the not cardiologist, the kidney doctor. I can't think right now. But anyways, there you go. We've got a visit set up for next week. So we're going to we're going to see how that goes. But she's been on vitamin D for about 3 weeks.
Okay, good.
Her kidneys and her pain has been going down.
Good.
So I'm kind of thinking the vitamin D's metabolizing everything,
I think so.
you know, yeah, I'm thinking we're having some decent results with the vitamin D. But yes, the cardio miracle is coming, and I'm hoping that the urologist has some interesting things to say when she does go in for her check.
That's right.
On a completely different note, I wanted to bring up my financials and everything. I'm a former owner operator. I ultimately had to shut down due to economic issues with freight rates and everything. I talked about this in a previous call. I was able to close the business without any trouble, thanks to your advice and Pittsburgh Power and the rest of the team as well. I moved myself into a company position. It's not exactly a lot of money, but it's adequate money. And I've continued to take your advice, focus on my expenses, despite, I'm a company driver. There's limited things that I can control as far as the truck.
Right.
However, my personal expenses with David Ramsey and yourself, of course, I'm sure that's a very positive name to hear.
Absolutely.
But we've come together, and I've looked at what is required. Do I need my house in Florida? No. So I got rid of it. Do I need the great big $45,000 car that I was owning? No. I'm out driving trucks, 4 months at a time. What did I need a car for? If I have to run to the store, just, bobtail the truck, Right. I realized it's 8 miles per gallon versus 26 to 30.
Look,
bobtail the truck for 3-4 miles. And
let me make a statement like this. You're right. Bobtailing the truck is the easy, obvious answer here, and the fuel mileage is insignificant at this point. But I could even make this statement: somebody in your situation that doesn't get home all that often, you could use Uber or Lyft or Instacart or DoorDash or any of those services all you want, and you're still never going to come anywhere near the cost of owning your own vehicle. That just sits there.
Yes, sir.
Right, doing nothing most of the time. Yes, sir. So, right, yeah. So, no, you've got the right idea here.
So,
Kevin, along that line with what you're saying, I've been looking at pickup trucks, and they want a lot of money for them, and I could buy one, but I'm like, I have a big truck, and what I'm building is a bed that'll sit on the frame rails of the truck.
Right.
And if I need to go to Lowe's or whatever, I'm going to have it on camper jack so I can just back the truck under it and make it into a sort of mini straight truck and
great idea.
Not have a problem.
Really, it's an awesome idea.
Yes, wonderful. I'll dive into my financials a little further than expected, but I basically have my term life insurance, a little bit of Aflac, just in case I have to go to the hospital.
Hey, John.
I've got my health insurance.
John,
yes, sir.
Stop 1 second, because I just want to go back and clarify something. Are you single or married?
Okay. I am married, and then I'm about to bring that up too. But yes, I am married.
Okay, got it. Go ahead, then.
So I've got my expenses dialed down. So the health insurance, life insurance, Aflac, cell phone that I'm talking on domestically here in the United States is all I pay for domestically here in the United States. I have all my credentials for driving to our family homestead in Ohio. So my driver's license is attached to Ohio. But for all intents and purposes, I live in Tuguegarao, Philippines.
You live where?
Tuguegarao, Philippines. It's 50 miles north of Manila, Philippines.
Got it. Okay. Very, very low cost of living.
Thank you.
Yes.
I've got my wife, 4 children, and a grandbaby set up in an apartment complex that I have purchased in a corporation over there in Philippines. I've got 10 units. The 10 units, I am working with Truckers Against Trafficking to kind of rescue Asian girls from getting caught up in trafficking before they even leave Philippines. I've seen way too much damage from this human trafficking, and I'm doing my best to work with our folks here domestically in the United States, and also with Philippine government and law enforcement to try to rescue these girls before they get caught up, and guys alike. It's amazing how many younger men are getting tangled up in this as well.
Well, good for you.
But Kevin, yes, thank you for all your advice. Keep it coming. I'm always listening, and there's always that one more thing that I'm just waiting to learn. And you just keep it coming. And you, David Ramsey, all of our Christian brothers out here that are really dialing in. I definitely encourage people to read Atlas Shrugged. It's a very old book, but it's a very good book, and it lines up very closely with what we're doing. A lot of Christians have a hard time digesting it, but if you look at it from the perspective that a atheist cannot deny God, that's a pretty shocking statement.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, I might even have to put Atlas Shrugged on my book list when I relaunch the book review podcast, which is going to come here soon. But I think what I'll do is I'll put it on the schedule about 3 months out, and encourage people, if they've never read it or listened to it, go listen to it. But I'll give them some time. So, John, great talking to you today. I'm going to move along. We've got calls piling up on us. Let's go to Illinois. Jerry, welcome.
Hi, Kevin. I got a question, and holy cow, you better put Atlas Shrugged on a long time. It's about, I think it was like almost 60 hours on the Audible.
One version I have is 66 hours.
Yeah, that's, I think, the first one that came out. I didn't like his narration. I think Scott Brick did the revised version. He's a lot better narrator, I think, anyway.
I'll have to check that out, because you're right. The narrator's a big issue. Good narrators are.
Well, it is to me.
It is to me too. I agree.
Yeah. And I think that first version, I don't know, it had like background noise or something. It was almost like he was recording in a warehouse somewhere or something. It was really kind of goofy, but whatever. That's not what I called about.
All right.
So, battery chargers. You seem to be talking a lot about batteries here lately. So my question is this: in order to set up the question is my truck, of course, has lead acid batteries. Has for years. I never shut my refrigerator off. Every time I get home, I've got jumper lugs, very conveniently located right behind the cab. I'll set a little battery charger on that catwalk and just put it on trickle charge if I'm going to be off for 34 hours or whatever.
Perfect.
Can I use the same battery charger for AGM batteries?
It depends. It depends on the charger itself. I have a really nice, and it's not that expensive. I have a really nice charger that I've got several settings. So I have like battery tender is one of the manufacturers. No buttons, no settings, no nothing. You plug it in, you hook it up to the battery. It charges at about 2 amps. That's fine on a car. My farm tractor, I leave something like that hooked up to it. 2 amps is a little low on the big batteries we're kind of running, especially if they get run down a little bit. So this charger allows me to choose lead acid, gel, or AGM, and it allows me to choose charging at 20 amps, 10 amps, or 2 amps. So in that case, I know exactly how to set that charger to optimize charging each battery. So I use this on my house batteries on the coach. When I have it here at the house itself, it's plugged in all the time. So my inverter chargers do all that for me, and they are set for the kind of batteries that's in the coach. But I've got it out at the homestead right now, and we don't have a hookup for it yet. So I'm using the battery charger so the generator doesn't have to keep coming on. But that's the battery charger that I have. Now, I will say this, though. I don't know that if you're just throwing like a little battery tender 2-amp charger on there, I don't think it matters much. I think that 2-amp little trickle charge works on just about any battery, I think.
Well, I'm going to assume that if I pull in the driveway after having been driving a while, that the
You're
batteries
pretty
are
well
going to be
charged.
fully charged, and the refrigerator surely can't draw that much. All I'm trying to do is just maintain full level.
Correct. And the battery or the refrigerators don't pull much at all.
No.
I think you're fine with any of the trickle chargers on the market.
Okay. Well, I know you talk a lot about batteries, and I knew you have mentioned the differences in some of them. I know you get into the other types, it takes a different type of charger, but I'm just curious about those AGM batteries.
I think
whether it takes a different charger or not.
I think one of the differences in how these batteries charge is really based on how many amps you're trying to cram into them. And that's more important when we're really trying to charge a battery that's working hard. It's been discharged. We need to get it back up to a charge, and we might throw 20 amps at it. Some batteries aren't going to respond well to that. But when we're talking about trickle chargers, almost all of them just charge at 2 amps, which is a really low amount. And I think that's fine for any battery. Any battery will accept that just fine.
Yeah, it's got a 2-amp and a 10-amp. It's just a little bitty charger. It's got a 2-amp and a 10-amp switch. And usually if I forget it and it sets all weekend and I haven't charged it, I forget it or whatever, I'll put it on 10 amps for a little while and leave it maybe, and then click it back to the 2-amp, in several hours.
Yeah.
If it's just driving in the driveway and putting the charger on, I put the 2-amp on and just go away and leave it.
And that is one of the best things you can do for your batteries, by the way.
Well, nothing but the best, Kevin.
There you go.
Yeah, I take good care of it. So,
That's right.
All right, that answered my question. I didn't know I had to go buy a different battery charger for the AGM batteries or not. So.
Nope, you're fine.
Thank you.
All right. Let's, I don't know what happened to all our calls. We had a bunch up on the board. We're down to 1. So it's either going to be a quick Friday today, or you could call in and join us. We'll stay here and hang out if you've got questions. 855-950-3835. Let's go to South Carolina. Tony, welcome. Tony? Henry, are you hearing me?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, Tony, you there? Thought I heard you now.
Oh, yeah, just in time. Somebody called in while I was waiting. I'm out of service right now. Can you guys go on about this important stuff? Like, you know how you talk about on this show on Fridays about how hours of service is supposed to increase your time value, and how going slow also, and this is being shut down for hours of service without going slow, as in I was going the speed limit to make up for some breakdown, and how that increases your pay. Because I was trying to explain that to a Purple Heart combat wounded veteran in the shop, and I told him there's these guys on the radio that say the hours of service should increase your pay, and
it did.
He wasn't buying it. Go on about that a little bit.
No, it did. I mean, we can prove it did. We can prove that ELDs raised rates. And I can promise you this.
Supply and demand.
I've said many, many times, if this were up to me, hours of service would just disappear. There's a better way to do this, in my opinion, for safety, and it's not hours of service. That's never going to change. So
Me too.
I don't talk much about it because it's not going to change. So why spend all the time on it? But here's the thing. If we did that, if we eliminated hours of service, rates would tank for a while.
I would go different than that, Kevin.
Go ahead.
So if you're really after highway safety, and
hold on.
To me, the driver would pick their hours.
Let's not go to safety.
And it'd be on their license.
No, I get that. Let's not go to safety, because we're really talking about money here, and those are two sides of the same coin. But very, very different approach. You and I, Henry, both agree that there are better ways, safety-wise, for hours of service. Let's set that aside and let's talk about the money.
And supply and demand.
Correct.
If a driver picked their hours and it was on their license and you had to have it on the outside of the truck, and if the two of them didn't match, you had a problem if you were outside of that, right?
Yeah. No,
You'd be on the same shift every day.
Yep.
And, okay, if there wasn't enough night shift trucks, it'd pay a differential. Okay,
Correct.
you get your license changed, you get onto that shift.
Right.
But you wouldn't be switching back and forth like we can now.
Which is
the more available we are, the more available anything is, the less it's worth.
Right. But there's a lot of upsides to that. It improves parking. It improves safety. It improves driver health. There's all kinds of upsides to putting more control in and still allowing more flexibility. And we should probably do a show on that someday. Let's stick with the money on this one. Tony, I have a proposal, really, really simple. We enact one law, the rates will go through the roof, and we'll need twice as many truck drivers.
Twice? Wait, you kept saying about using four-wheelers and less than class 4.
Correct. Correct. We outlaw we outlaw all trucks above class 4. Rates will go through the roof.
That's not where I want to go with this. Remember, you're talking to somebody that's just been shut down for hours of service.
What I'm trying to do is prove a concept.
Low speed.
And try to prove a concept. The concept is
I like it.
Well, here's the problem with it. It benefits us. It is horrible for our economy. So do you still want to do it?
How does it benefit us? How does
benefits
it
us
benefit us, though? Because you don't need a valid CDL for that. And we have so much more competition. Anyway, that's not where I wanted to go with this. Remember, I'm having to tell the officer, this stuff like starting my day now after 10 hours of not sleeping at 9:30 p.m. is not safer than doing it right now when I got 5 hours of sleep. Everybody knows this, and I feel great. And I've only got, 8 hours. 6 hours left to go?
Now you are wandering into the area that Henry was starting to address, that if this is more of a safety issue you want to talk about, there are far better ways to do what we're doing today. Right.
Do you remember what mine is? It's the third time that I've asked that.
I don't.
Biometrics. And that's where you guys started.
Remember that. That's right. I do remember.
Starting making fun of me about, I forget. But I'm really serious. That's the way to do it.
I wouldn't disagree. That could be a part of it, no doubt.
Like they have breathalyzers. I'm not going to say how intimately aware of those that I am. Not me, but somebody I know.
Yeah.
Why not have that in the truck for melatonin? I mean, we're a health show.
Well,
I'm not going to lie.
Here are some of the problems.
I don't listen to it, but that's one of the things we should be talking about is melatonin. And why not have a breathalyzer? That would eliminate everything.
Well, no, it wouldn't.
See, that's what I wanted to bring up too. One of my skills is being able to operate a vehicle a long time. How do I leverage that when there's these?
All right, I'm going to mute you. Henry, are you hearing me?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was screaming at him and he wouldn't shut up. So, Tony, hold on 1 second. I want to go back. You said if we could measure melatonin, it fixes everything. Not even close. Melatonin levels are not a good indicator of whether or not we're going to go to sleep. I wish it was. If it were, all you'd have to do is take a little melatonin and all our sleep issues would be gone. It doesn't work. So I understand the idea of using biometrics, and I'm with you. But it's not going to be as simple as just saying, all we have to do is measure this one number and know whether somebody is awake and alert or sleepy. I don't know of any measurement that would be that accurate. Now go ahead.
Thank you for muting me. I have achieved my goal. So you started to address how this, just kidding. That addresses how we increase our value I need to be able to tell brokers, hey, I've never gotten anything for these hours of service. I know they've been in place, but they it's hard to have Christmas this year, and I think that's how I got out of the $400 fine by this nice cop. Is I'm trying to have Christmas this year, and I can't do that when it's always illegal to do my job, and it's not safer to wait 10 hours right now and start my day at 9:30. So how do I leverage my skill? My skill is operating. It's not chess, tennis, business, math. It is operating this vehicle for long periods of time, and it is illegal for me to do that. So how do I leverage that skill within these hours of service and use this to my advantage to make my value more?
I don't know.
Uh,
How's that for an answer?
Become an investor during your other 5 hours that you didn't know what to do with, or figure out something else to do. And to me, what I like about that extra time that I didn't used to do, possibly when it was on paper, I'll go for a walk or something. I get exercise that I didn't used to get. I mean,
I think there's a lot of people out there saying that I wish I had the time to do that. I used to too, but there's a lot of people out there saying, hey, I can't even get barely paid on these only 70 hours that we have now, because now you can go less miles, and everybody is out there. They're waiting for me to say that no, going slower is mathematical malpractice. I'm sorry. I get it. And I perform that, and I'm waiting for the results to come in. I do like it, and it does seem to work, but there's a lot of people out there that we're fighting against. And I don't seem to have time for anything. And it's shut me down, literally. Right now, I'm shut down because of going slow and running out of hours.
Going on where you're going, okay? And Kevin knows, as far as knowing how to make money when I'm going fast, I do that. Like right now, I'm doing 62 because I have time.
You can.
Right. I make a decision every day and every week what I got to do. If I do my big 3,860 mile week, I got to be right up at the speed limit the whole time.
Right.
If I'm doing my other run, which is 1382 each way, I can back off and get it done. So
here's the thing, Tony.
It's a math equation that when you have the time, it's not going to make that big of a difference in your arrival time. But if you have one of them, 3860, you got to hit everything right to get that done. And I come rolling in with 20 minutes left. But it's a big week.
Here's the thing, Tony. I am so passionate about this topic that there is no magic speed. Some operations there is, and I talked about it for years in my FedEx operation. The magic speed for me is 57 miles an hour. There was never a reason to do more than that. Now, if there
they dispatched at 45.
Correct. They dispatch at 45. 57 gives you all kinds of extra time to deal with it. That was our schedule, and we could take advantage of that. Do you know how many contractors still ran 70, 75 miles an hour everywhere they went? There's no need for it. But here's the thing. And Henry's got a great operation where he has two different runs, and he's already got it all calculated. He doesn't have to think about it anymore. But if we're out there just picking up random freight, this is still a really important topic. There's no magic number. It depends on the rate, the load, and the cost of fuel. And like Henry said, it's a math problem. But I gave everybody the tool about a decade ago to see the calculation while they're driving down the road. You don't have to do any math. It's built into the scan gauge. You can set up your scan gauge.
That's a really great thing.
It will tell you when you're driving fast and slow what your profit is, and then you could compare that against the load. Here's the thing. If you accept a load and it's got a time and you've got to drive 75 to get there, well, you took the load. You committed to it. You're going to have to drive 75 or you're going to be late. Or in this case,
a lot of these operations, including being an independent, you're trying to get that load off early to try to maximize that profit and get time to fit in an extra load. Even though your appointment has time, it's not an appointment.
Hey,
which
Tony,
I think appointments should be
Tony,
against the law, by the way,
let me address
because you're
something
still trying to deliver it earlier
let
than
me
that
address
appointment.
something you just said, because I understand why people think this way, but it's stinking thinking. Who used to say that?
All right.
Zig Ziglar. That's stinking thinking. Here's why. When you say to get one more load in what time period? Now, here's the comparison
The
I'll
week,
make. Now,
70 hours.
who cares? Who cares? You just roll over to another day anyway. So let me make a comparison where this matters. When somebody calls
I
me
think
in
a
their,
lot of people are missing that,
I know,
including myself.
that's why I'm about to explain it. In a local operation, sand and gravel, aggregate, that's a big one. We see those guys, we talk about it all the time. They drive like maniacs. And the reason they do, I understand why they do. You might be in an area where you can get 4 loads in a day pretty comfortably. But if you really bust your ass all day long, you can get in a 5th. Now, here's the thing. You either get the 5th load that day or you're never getting it, because tomorrow is a whole new day and you start over again. You had a very limited time period each day to get as much work done as possible. It does make sense to drive like a maniac like that. I understand why those guys do that. That one more load that day makes a huge difference in your bottom line. But once you go over the road, why are we thinking in terms of a week? A week nothing changes in a week. I can take another load on the 8th day.
Well, if you can get an extra load in that 70 hours rather than just wasting that entire amount of time, that is significant.
No, but the only way you're going to get that supposed extra load in this imaginary time period that you've put on yourself is to drive much faster, and your cost will kill you. That's the point.
Well, and you may not even get
especially if you're doing a regular route. I have set routes that I'm able to figure that out on.
That was my point.
And I know what I'm doing 2-3 weeks out.
Correct.
If you can get that extra load, if you know you can get that extra load, well, then it's worth it. I did that for years running fence down to
typically what happens
Florida.
When people start driving faster. They become very inefficient in their time. You drive faster to get to the dock, and many, many times all that's going to do is make you sit longer at the dock. Now, while you're sitting at the dock, even though it's a beautiful 65 degrees out, low humidity, people are idling their truck, wasting more fuel. Here's another one. The more fuel you waste,
peace of mind that you've done whatever it takes to try to get that extra income. And if you don't get it, then it's on them. You've done your best, and the system has just failed. That's the way people are thinking.
That you're right. That's the
but
way
I'm starting
people
to
are.
abandon that line of thinking anymore.
But here's one more factor.
If you hustle all the time, your maintenance costs go up too.
Way up. Your stress levels go up. Your risk of an accident goes up. And here's another one. And people don't calculate.
No, it's not a risk of an accident, Kevin. I have to disagree. You're more likely to be in a crash. If you're running fast and hard, that's not an accident. It's a crash.
Here's
so
one
back
more.
to biometrics.
Hold on, I ran a
we have to.
I have a
think
calculator
this is be a thing.
that calculates this number. The worse your fuel economy is because you're driving so fast, the more times every year you have to stop and fuel. And it's a big time suck. It's bigger than what you would think.
You just hate truck stops, so you're just saying that.
I do hate truck stops.
And where you're not like me, where you can go in and to the Loves and get your shower and fuel in 15 minutes. I'm just kidding, but I get it.
Shower and fuel in 15 minutes.
If I could have figured out,
I used to work out for a half hour, take a shower while the truck's fueling or something. I was crazy, but yeah, not anymore. I'd rather not fuel.
If I could have afforded to pay somebody to deliver fuel to me someplace other than a truck stop, I would have done it.
Hey, Kevin, like today, I haven't had to be in a hurry, and I'm cruising at 62, and I'm at 12.7 miles to the gallon.
Yeah, I know.
Normally, I'm only at 10, so
All right, Tony, anything else? Because the calls are piling up on us again. Everybody decided they did want to talk to us.
Yeah, we can't ignore biometrics. Can we please do something to get rid of these hours of service, because it's not helping, and I need to be able to leverage my health and my just operating ability, where I'm okay to work right now, but there's these laws saying that I'm tired.
Contact your senator and your congressman and join associations that lobby for what you want. That's how you get that changed.
And I call into this program asking for us to figure out what kind of device could measure tiredness. Do I have to go out there and do 30 push-ups? Because I'm wide awake and I have to sit here for another 9 hours for no reason. It's horribly inefficient.
I agree.
And I'll make room for
there's
that.
a reason, because there's rules, just like the speed limit signs. Technically, you can only go so fast anyway.
Yeah, there's a reason, we just don't like it. And it is inefficient, and it should be changed. But I made a decision a long time ago. I could either work as an advocate to try to get stuff changed at the government level, or I could do what I do, which is help people be as efficient as possible in our current system. And I just find that I get a lot more satisfaction and I get a lot more accomplished helping people work in the system, and trying to change the system makes me crazy. I just can't do it. I'm glad there are people out there that do it, but I don't see anybody being very effective at it.
No. And you know what? It really doesn't matter what the rules are. And when I say that, all that matters is that the rules are the same for everybody.
No, I agree. Tell me what the rules are and I'll figure out a way to be efficient. And that's kind of what I've done. And then I'll complain about the rules all the time because I don't like them. And people say, well, if you're going to complain about them, go do something. No, I'm not. I'm not. It's a horrible system we have anymore.
You got to figure out how to win as the rules are laid out.
Yeah. Yeah, if other people want
to, that's what I used to. Well, you used to race, Kevin. When they changed the rules, that was always an opportunity. You didn't have to figure out how to maximize them rules. You just had to figure out how to do it better than your competitors, and that puts you at the top of the field.
Well, here's a great example. I went to a new track when I was racing motocross, and I was always used to a starting gate. You know, the little iron gate that is down in front of your tire, and the gate just drops and everybody takes off. I went to a track that had like this giant rubber band that was stretched across instead of a gate, and they released it. Well, that's a long starting line. So the first thing you want to do is you want to be over at that end where they release it. You get a couple milliseconds head start. And then I figured out something else. We sat there one day and timed it with a stopwatch. And I figured out another trick. I could start back from the starting line, and there were no rules against this. And I could time it so that I hit the line as they were releasing the rubber band. And then,
well, you know, along this line, I'm sorry, Kevin.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to address what's saying. I remember, and this is the racer in me. I was always trying to figure out how to get a lap ahead of everybody. When I say a lap ahead, that I was the first one being loaded, the first one being unloaded, yada, 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 right?
Right.
And on this particular place, boy, everybody was trying to get there in the morning. Well, you'd end up behind 10, 15 trucks in line, right?
Yeah.
And then I changed my strategy, and I decided that I was going to be the last truck they loaded every day.
There you go.
Well, it put me on the opposite side of the schedule of everybody, and I wasn't having to wait to load or unload as long as everybody else. I tried to run, as I called it, and it was hard for me to do, Kevin, but I tried to be at the tail end of the lead lap.
I know. That's hard. That's a hard habit to break. But what you were doing, we talk about this all the time around here. That's called contrarian thinking. And it almost always works. If you start doing the opposite of what the crowd is doing, you'll almost always find benefits.
Yeah, I tried to get on the other end of it, to the point where some other people caught on to what I was doing, that the shippers started getting on us, that about everybody rolling in the last half an hour.
That was what happened with the running start on the rubber band thing. That once I did it, you could see the advantage. Then somebody else did it. Then 10 people did it. Then they had to change the rules again. Then somebody showed up with a clear advantage. So now what they did was they went to a rule where you had to be right up on the line and you had to put your left hand on your helmet. You weren't allowed to leave your left hand on the handlebars. You could have your right hand on the handlebars, but you had to put your left hand on your helmet, so you couldn't take it off your helmet till they released the rubber band. And then you had to grab the clutch, get it in gear, and go. And they thought that would equalize everybody a little more, except some guy showed up with a Can-Am motorcycle, which was a pretty rare motorcycle back then. Can-Am makes snowmobiles, but they actually made a motorcycle for a while. And it had...
Oh, yeah. I remember them.
It had a centrifugal clutch. So now this guy can leave his hand on his head and just take off. He didn't have a clutch. And he got the whole shot every single time. I mean, it wasn't even close. So, all right.
You should have had him rub his belly with his left hand, the right hand.
Yeah, there you go.
He's tapping his head.
There you go.
After a bit, Kevin, they'd be having you to have both hands on your head.
I know. As soon as you come up with an advantage, they would try to change the rules again. But I'm one of those people that will always find an advantage. Just give me the rules and I'll figure out how to find the advantage.
And that's the biggest problem I have with our hours of service rules is that when they give exemptions.
Oh, exactly.
No,
right.
Exemption.
Well, here's the thing. If the hours of service are all about human safety and saving lives, why would we ever give an exemption?
Right. Right.
I have to agree with
and that's how I was with rules when I raced. And I always liked it when they changed the rules because most people would spend half the next season complaining about the rule. I'd spend time figuring out how to do that rule better than everybody else did.
Exactly.
So Tony's sitting in his truck for 10 hours right now, wide awake. What do you think is going to happen in 10 hours? In 10 hours, he's going to be tired.
Of course he is.
And it's happened to me countless amount of times when you can't sleep, you have to be there 10 hours. And then, like at 9 hours, you can finally fall asleep, and then you have to wake up. The hours of service. The way they do it is wrong. Because I can run I see what Tony's saying. I can run my 70-hour clock in 6 days down to pretty much nothing. You know what I mean? By the time you're loading, unloading, and whatnot. And if you're pulling off the load board, what he's saying is on that 7th day, if he could have picked another load and gone faster, he could have got it, but he's been going slow all week. Those hours you can never get back, and so that's all he's saying is that if he's not busting ass all week, he didn't have the opportunity to grab that last load on the 7th when his clocks run out.
No, I get that.
Yeah,
but he's creating.
It comes down to planning. You know what I try to do, Kevin, on my hours of service. As a general rule, I try to leave 10 hours in reserve. Because remember, that's the maximum you can do.
I know. Here's the difference.
Anyway.
I might not be explaining this correctly. When we go back to those daily operations, here's how it works. If I can't pick up that load by 4:30 p.m., I am done until 7 o'clock the next morning. There's nothing I can do during that off time. Once I miss that opportunity that day, I can never make it up. And that's every single day. Once you go to an irregular route over the road, I don't know why we're even thinking in terms of 70 hours. I mean, I can get a load the next day. And I should look at this as how many hours do I have in an entire year? I don't have this strict schedule where if I miss this by a couple of minutes, I'd lose the opportunity forever. That's not, and that happens day after day after day after day. But that's never the situation in and over the road. Many times you're just rushing to get somewhere and sit there anyway.
No, right. No, totally agree with you. And I'm almost to the point now where I'd rather just run 10 hours a day and just keep going.
Right.
No reset. Because that 34-hour reset, that's 2 days is basically what it is, unless you plan that perfectly. And my guys, you know, I'm a company driver, so my dispatcher's pulling off the load board. He has no idea what I'm going to be doing 7 days from now.
Right.
You know, so it's almost just better. And with the time, I don't like driving at night anyway because of stupid people with their bright lights on. It's why I don't have the gun handy. It just absolutely drives me insane. But yeah, I'm almost just, and I haven't really done the math on whether I can run more hours or more miles or not. But I think that's what I'm going to just do it's minuscule, the difference, really. And so if I just run 10 hours a day, and then get up early, you know, it gives me a little bit more time to watch my YouTube shorts, which I was going to send you the one last night because that's my call. Did you watch the Al Smith dinner with Trump last night?
I didn't. No, I saw a couple of highlights, but I didn't watch it.
Oh my God. Did you see what he said about the white dudes for Harris?
I saw somebody kind of summarized his good lines, and yeah, he had some good lines last night. They were kind of brutal.
Some of them are brutal, but the good ones you probably won't see. Yeah,
my favorite was when he said, he looked over at Chuck Schumer and said, "Chuck, you look a little down. You should be excited with the way things are going. you might be able to be the first female president."
That was hilarious.
That was a good line.
One of my favorites. Yeah. When he told the white dudes for Harris that he wasn't worried about their vote because he's sure that their wives and their lovers are going to vote for him.
Yeah, their wife's boyfriend would be voting for him. I know. He had some really good lines. Yeah, they were brutal. Yeah,
it was old Trump. He went on a little bit long, but it was old Trump at his best.
Yeah,
you know, it was like, oh my God, I'm in Minnesota now, and I'm seeing about 50-50 Trump-Harris signs, you know. But you know, God only knows what's going to happen here.
I don't know if it's just where I am, but this whole election feels different. And for some reason, to me, it seems like everybody's talking about it. Everybody's paying attention to it. Yet I see hardly no signs, no bumper stickers. It does not feel like we're this close to an election where I usually see that stuff everywhere. I don't think I'm seeing much this year.
You know what, Kevin? I think this year, people are afraid of vandalism.
Maybe that's it. You might be right. That's a good point. But it just seems like the numbers are way down.
If anybody needs if anybody has an old truck they need rid of, pepper it with Trump signs and take it to downtown Portland.
There you go. Yeah.
Kevin, before I forget about it, I got a book recommendation for you.
Shoot. What do you got?
And it's a book. It's a book I read. It's a book I read a long time ago. I bought it at a thrift store. Eddie Rickenbacker.
Wasn't he
the printed in 1967?
Wasn't he the fighter?
World War I ace.
Yeah.
World War I ace, was owned the Indianapolis Speedway. Was an Indianapolis car driver. Was CEO of Eastern Airlines. Had his own car company at one point, the Rickenbacker, and he was from Ohio, Columbus, which is why it's Rickenbacker Airport.
Ah, there you go. What's the name? What's the title of the book?
Eddie Rickenbacker.
Oh, okay.
Autobiography.
That's
printed
easy.
in 1967.
Okay.
I could not set that book down. I had that book read in a week, and it was thick.
That sounds like a good one.
I hope it's got a good narrator. I'll look it up on the Audible.
You won't find it that way. No, you won't find it on Audible. I had to read it.
Damn. Kevin, I have a health question. So I ordered the iodine. I haven't done the iodine test yet, so I'm going to do that. But doing this carnivore diet, I know I'm in ketosis, but man, I'm having a hard time sleeping for more than, like I'll sleep, I'll go to sleep weird time and sleep like 3 hours and be wide ass awake, and I won't be able to go back to sleep.
What
are we doing?
Tommy, you've listened to me long enough to know that that is still my single biggest issue in life, is the fact that the healthier I eat, and when I say healthier, I'm not just trying to make up that this is a healthy diet. I know that it's healthy. All of my biomarkers improve. Everything. My weight drops. Body fat disappears. Bloating goes away. Joint pain goes away. My brain fog goes away. Energy levels go through the roof. We know this is healthy. We're much, much healthier. But the more strict I am on any of these diets, carnivore, keto, any of the low carb, the more strict I am, the less I sleep.
Yeah,
you know what helps me on that, Kevin?
You could I've probably done it, but go ahead. What?
Celestial Seasonings teas.
Sleepy Time.
Sleepy Time tea.
Sleepy Time. I love Sleepy Time.
Yeah.
Doesn't help a bit in this case.
It's funny. Every time I tell somebody else about that, and they're like, "It's not working," and then they're out.
Oh no, Sleepy Time.
Really, it actually works.
Well, yes and no. Sleepy Time, and Sleepy Time is just. Oh shoot! What's the herb? It's only one herb.
Oh.
Calamine.
Say that again.
Calamine.
I'm not understanding. You're breaking up. It's an herb, and it's an herb that is known.
Calamine.
That doesn't sound right.
Calamine.
Chamomile.
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 Yeah,
That's what it is. Yeah, you were close. That's why I wasn't understanding. Yeah, it's chamomile. So you can buy all kinds of chamomile tea. Sleepy Time is chamomile. Now, here's something interesting about Sleepy Time. Henry, I'll ask you, like Sleepy Time, and I do too. Have you ever tried Sleepy Time Extra?
Yes.
So for me, I thought, oh, Sleepy Time works. And it does. It'll help relax me. It'll help me go to sleep. The problem is I'll wake up in 3 hours and I'll be wide awake and I could drink a gallon of it after that, and it's not going to do me any good. So it's not always falling asleep that's any problem for me. Sometimes that's the easy part. It's as though the healthier I eat, the less sleep my body needs. And at some point,
right,
I just don't want to be awake anymore. You know what? It's like I need a break from stuff. I don't want to work anymore. I don't want to watch any more TV. I don't want to read another book. I want to sleep. And you wake up and you're just wide awake. But here is the weird thing about Sleepy Time Extra. Sleepy Time Extra is chamomile and valerian root. And for whatever reason, valerian root is a known sleep aid. It's used in almost all sleep products, or many of them. For whatever reason, valerian root does the exact opposite to me. If I drink that, I won't be able to get to sleep at all. It makes me really restless.
I'm going to get some Sleepy Extra. Oh, before I forget, man. So I scratched that woman's name on my my notepad I had yesterday, and then I didn't think I had anything important on it. I looked at it real quick and threw it away. So give me that lady's name again if you can.
I can.
And then so yesterday, so I haven't been able to sleep for it's been like 3 or 4 days where that's been happening. So I said, screw it, and got a sweet potato. Had my sweet potato with my steak last night, and I slept like a baby.
Adding carbs back in will actually help. It does help. And So when I add the carbs back in, and I'll stay between 50 and 75 grams of carbs a day, which is still pretty low carb. I don't have any side effects from that. I don't gain any weight. I don't get any joint pain. I will sleep better. I still don't sleep as good as I think I should be sleeping, but I do sleep better. And then the other extreme, last year, the 2 weeks prior to Louisville, because I had the first time ever we were doing the CMC at Louisville. I had a lot going on. And Lisa was traveling. She was down in LA at that big event. So I was by myself. It was the one time I did really strict carnivore. Like all I really ate for those 2 weeks was like beef and eggs. And the only non-carnivore thing I consumed was coffee and brain octane, because brain octane isn't carnivore either, but or mind fuel. I did it for 2 weeks. By the time I got to Louisville, I was down to 3 hours of sleep a night. That was it. 3 hours in every 24-hour period. That was all I was getting. And I was starting to get delirious, I think. I had tons and tons of energy. I wasn't tired, but I was,
Yeah.
I wanted to sleep and I just couldn't. 3 hours, I was up.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm doing right now. I've got to find how many. I wonder how many carbs are in a medium-sized sweet potato. Probably a couple hundred, eh?
Oh no, not at all. There won't even be 100.
Well, that's probably not the end of the world. Then every 2-3 days have a sweet potato if it starts having a problem with the sleep, because sleep's sort of important in this vocation.
So here 100 grams of sweet potato, which is about 4 ounces. And I know you're going to eat more than that, but just to give you a starting point, about 4 ounces, 3.5 to 4 ounces of sweet potatoes, 20 grams of carbs.
Okay. 20, 40, 60. So it's probably 80 carbs, 75, 80 carbs in for a medium sweet potato. Not, I'm sure that'll keep me in ketosis anyway.
Well, and that's one of the things that I've been able to figure out is if I eat the carbs that I'm going to eat late in the evening, so I'll be in ketosis all day. I can eat the carbs before bed, so they help me sleep some. And when I get up in the morning, that's the big trick behind Mind Fuel. Mind Fuel first thing in the morning, no matter how much carb loading you might have done the night before, Mind Fuel will put me right back into ketosis in the morning.
Okay, I've got to get some from your store. I just never get home. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Oh, and then this is the first time I've ever heard you talk about calcium and vitamin D and the vitamin D putting the calcium where it's supposed to be, as opposed to kidney stones or that type of thing.
So, we have women who are suffering from weak bones and osteoporosis and all those things, and everybody started loading up on calcium supplements, and their health got worse, and their osteoporosis didn't get any better. We have no shortage of calcium in our body. That calcium is not a hard nutrient to get. Our bones are all made of calcium. Our teeth are made of calcium, and our body is able to take calcium out of our bones and use it for other things and put it right back into our bones when we need it. And that's how it should work. And we should never really have a problem with calcium. The problem is if you don't have the right vitamin D levels and the other mineral cofactors, it looks like you might have a deficiency of calcium because your bones get weak. But at the same time, you're also getting kidney stones. We had a call about that today. You're having heart plaque issues. Those are all calcium buildups because the calcium is not going where it belongs. It's going to places and causing damage, and it's not in the bones and the other places we need it. That it's a nutritional issue. If your vitamin D levels are good, you have the other mineral cofactors, the calcium will go to your bones, and when your body needs something for something else, it can pull some out, put it back when it's done. It's an oversimplification, but that's what's happening. And it turns out that Cardio Miracle has like almost the perfect ratio of things to be the best delivery system for the vitamin D and the cofactors.
For the balancing of everything.
Right.
Okay. All right then. Okay, I have to get that too. So give me that woman's name one more time. Lori something.
Lori Martin Gregory.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Anything else?
All right. No, thank you very much. I was writing that down
All
because
right.
I'll forget it because I've got
Don't throw it away.
CRS, so I don't want any brain fuel.
Yeah, don't throw it away.
All right, thank you guys.
All right, see ya. Let's go to Ohio. Daryl, welcome.
Hello, good morning. I've got two questions, health and business, if you will.
Sure.
Okay, health. I'm looking to get back into my exercise program, and I'm curious. I was doing it before my 60s. I'm 60 right now, looking at 61 in December. Is steroid something I should be looking at steroid injections under a doctor's supervision, or would the keto program do about as much and be safer for me? And I'm looking at energy. My energy levels, I've noticed, have dropped a bit.
Got it. Got it. And there is a lot of talk these days about low testosterone, and we'll just give you some shots. And I'm not a fan of this at all. The way our body, much of our health is dictated by hormones, weight loss, energy levels, all kinds of things are determined by hormones, and the most powerful hormones are sex hormones, testosterone, estrogen, those. Insulin, though, is also a big factor here. I am not a fan of trying to manipulate hormone levels with drugs and injectables and shots. And you've heard me talk, and you've heard all the talk about Ozempic, right? And how it helps people lose weight. And that's what they're doing. Ozempic manages hormone levels. It's the GLP-1, the glucagon-like protein, I think is what that stands for. When you manipulate that hormone level, your appetite goes away and you can lose weight. Well, that's what keto does. That's what low carb does. Low carb manipulates the GLP-1s naturally rather than doing it with a pharmaceutical. I'm not a fan of injecting hormones into people or giving it to them in any way other than changing their diet and their lifestyle so that their body produces those hormones the way they are supposed to. Now, you'll have people who will tell you, oh, but as you get older, your hormone levels go down. Well, that might be common, but it's not normal and it shouldn't happen. It happens because our diet and our lifestyle sucks so bad that every year we get less and less healthy, and those things do happen. And we just say, oh, that's because you're getting older. Well, no, it's not because you're getting older. It's because your diet and your lifestyle are so poor that the longer you do this, the worse you're going to get. When you get your diet right and you get stress levels down, I have the testosterone levels of a healthy 20-year-old.
And that's just on keto.
Keto, carnivore, any good, clean, low-carb diet will do that.
Okay. Well, I've been struggling at it because I've been doing this for about 33 years over the road. It's hard to get to decent food.
No, you have to take control of your own food supply. You can't eat out. And I just have to tell, and
I understand.
I could show somebody how to eat out that would be far healthier than the way they're doing it now. But if we want to be ultimately healthy, we just have to stop eating out. There's just too many contaminants in the food that restaurants serve. There's seed oils, there's garbage. It is just, our food supply is a disaster. And when you eat out, you have almost no control over it. The only way to take control of it is right from the very beginning, sourcing your own food and then preparing it in a way you can take it in the truck. Pressure canning meat, fermenting vegetables, things like that can go a long way towards helping you really control your food supply all the time in the truck. And there are other
Well, now,
advantages. Once you get into this idea of pressure canning your own meat or your own meals, you can pressure can chili, soups, all kinds of things. Once you do
chili's
that,
good.
what's that?
Chili is something you should eat.
Well,
Is chili carnivore?
somewhat. I mean, it's got a tomato base to it, so it's not 100% carnivore. But I just said I can't eat 100% carnivore, or I go off the rails. It's too extreme for me. My body does some really weird things after about 4 or 5 days on really strict carnivore. My energy levels go through the roof. I can't sleep. I'm almost manic. And I've talked to some other. That doesn't happen to everybody. I know people that have been on strict carnivore for years and do fine with it. I don't. I've got to get some carbs back in, or just some weird things happen. So I have no problem with the ingredients in chili. I mean, it's all homemade from my own tomatoes. I mean, that's how homemade.
So you make your own.
Yeah, that's how homemade mine is. I start with the tomatoes that I grew in my garden, the onions I grew in my garden, and the garlic I grew in my garden, and the herbs, the basil, and all of it starts from my garden. So my chili is pretty darn clean. And true chili, the original chili, doesn't have beans. It's meat and sauce.
Okay. Well, I don't know. They don't do it that way in Texas, but this falls into my business question. I'm looking at purchasing land only because I own 2 semi-trucks, my work semi-trailer, and I have a shop semi-trailer. I'm renting from a good friend of mine. He's up there in age, and he's looking to retire, and he's wanting to sell his place. It's set up as a perfect one-truck owner-operator.
Nice. Okay.
Setup. Now, he is looking to sell in the next 2 to 3 years. And I'm driving a new to-me truck that's actually treating me right. I inked the deal in February. I paid it off in May, and I'm actually stacking money now. I'm one of those guys that was one of those hobby truckers you used to talk about years ago, but now I'm getting old, and so I've straightened up.
I have an idea for you.
What's that?
So based on where we are in the real estate market, I think we're in a really unique place in the real estate market. The prices, in my opinion, on real estate should have come down a long time ago. They didn't. They're still high. I believe that there is going to be a big correction in real estate. And it might be as big as 08, where we see a 40-50% hit on some properties. I've been expecting that for a while, and it hasn't happened, but I'm still kind of expecting it. If I could, here's the way I would try to structure a deal like this. I would go to your friend and say, can I rent your place for 1 year? And you get to work out a rental that makes sense for everybody. And part of my rental agreement is I always have first right of refusal if you put the property up for sale. Because it doesn't sound like he's in a big hurry to sell it. So I wouldn't try to buy it now, because you're going to pay an elevated price if you try to buy it now. I think we're going to see a correction. By renting.
Well, I'm not looking to buy it now. He's telling me 2 to 3 years. And what I'm looking at, I am starting to stack my revenue. He's looking at $1 million on this property.
Okay.
What I want to know is, what can I do with my money to make it grow and add to what I'm putting away? I'm averaging about $50,000 every 4 months in my operation.
Okay, so in a case like this is an easy answer, because in a case like this, we don't have many options. What we're talking about is very short-term investing. You know, if we have lots and lots of time, there's lots of investment strategies that can work. When we have a short amount of time, there's almost nothing. And here's the only thing I would recommend you do with this kind of cash that you're going to need for this purchase sometime soon. We're not even exactly sure when, but we know it's going to be soon. You just need to go get a good
Mm-hmm.
high yield savings account right now. They're paying about 4.5. You might find 5% still, and just dump your money in there.
Aha, that's what I was wondering.
Yep. Yep.
High yield savings account.
Yeah. Here's the other thing you could do. You could also check and see if anybody is issuing like 6-month or 1-year CDs that might be paying a little higher than the savings accounts. And the only difference there is you put all the money in. If it's a 6-month CD, you have to wait 6 months to get it back out. If it's a year CD, you have to wait a year to get it back out. And you can't add to it. It's a one-time purchase kind of thing. Now, you could keep buying 6-month CDs. You know, if you have some cash now, you could buy a 6-month CD now, and next month you could do it again, buy another 6-month CD.
Mm-hmm.
You can't add to the one you've already got. Honestly, the last time I looked, the CDs were only paying a couple of percentage points more than the savings accounts were, so it just wasn't even worth it. But that changes all the time, and I haven't looked in about 2 months.
So the high yield savings account is about 4%.
4.5. I know for
And
sure
the
you can get
6-month
4.5 today.
Oh, okay, 4.5. And your CDs are at 2.5.
Oh, then no way.
If you could find it.
Yeah, no way then. No way. When I looked,
No?
there's no way I would do a CD then. The CD has to pay more than the savings account to make it worth it, not less. If a CD isn't paying more than a savings account, then there's no way I'm going to consider the CD.
No.
Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is now I'm in a small town bank, so I'm not sure what they have available. But I guess I'll go and sit down and have a conversation with them.
It's shocking to me.
I really don't like your larger banks because I don't like the way they do business. So
I don't either.
What do you know?
But I'm not asking you to switch all of your banking. If your bank offers a good savings account rate, then absolutely give them the money. I doubt that they do. Most small-time banks haven't, for some reason, they just haven't raised their rates much. But there are, and it doesn't even have to be a bank. Mutual fund companies, there are other places you could put this money. Keep all of your banking with your current bank. I'm a big believer in having a relationship like that. But this is a case where we're just going to take this extra money and we're just going to go get the best rate of return we can get.
I see. Okay. Now, and so far as the way trucking is right now, the rates, the economy and everything, I own my truck. I own my trailer. The type of trailer I have is one of those Kentucky trailers with belly boxes and lift gate.
Oh, yeah.
Is there specific places that I can go to get that? I'm averaging about $1.69 to $2.10 a mile. Am I doing the best I can with the equipment I have? I do pad wrap furniture to warehouses and stores.
No, my guess is you're not. And all I have to do is ask you one question and I'll know for sure whether you're doing the best you can or not. Where are you getting your freight?
Maryland, California, Dallas, Texas, and North Carolina.
No, how do you know that?
I'm a contract driver. I'm leased to a company.
Oh, well then how would, other than leaving that company, how would you do any better?
Well, now that's my question. I think you said it early on in your show where guys were chomping at the bit who were running contract rate when the rates were going through the roof. Right now, I think I'm safe where I'm at, but I see a setup like mine going all over the place. So I'm scratching my head and wondering. The only reason I have this trailer is because the company allowed me to buy my own trailer, and a guy got killed because he didn't have a lift gate. So I said, maybe I'd better buy one with a lift gate.
In general, let me tell you how you get a better freight rate. You are not getting the best freight rate available being leased to a carrier, but you do have some advantages.
Okay.
It's consistent. You've got some backup there. They're doing a lot of the work for you that you would have to do otherwise. So I'm not saying it's bad to be leased to a carrier, but you're not going to get the best rate. No, you're there for other reasons. If you wanted the best rate in any segment, really, here's the easiest way to do it. If you have your own authority, because that's the only way we can really go chase these rates and find better rates. We have to have that control. So you have your own authority.
Well, now, I do have my own authority,
You
but
just
I'm
told
not
me you were
using it
leased
right
to a
now.
carrier. Oh, you mean it's inactive?
Yeah, it's inactive.
Okay.
It's inactive.
So
I've had it since '94.
Okay, so here's the way you do it. With your own authority, you go find, and I know people hate this word, you go find the brokers that control the freight in that segment. They're out there. There are brokers that specialize in the kind of freight you move. You go build a relationship with them, and they'll get you to the best freight. Because the best freight never makes the load boards.
No.
Now, before I step off of a safe place, is there a way to find out if that freight exists? Because I've been hearing van guys getting less than $1 a mile.
Well, those less than $1 a mile loads are out there, but that's kind of like Henry was talking about before. People only talk about the best and the worst. Nobody talks about what really happens every day. Those under $1 a mile loads are that's not the market. It's just what people like to bitch about.
No.
Okay.
You asked a question I was going to
answer. If it were, there'd be a lot of trucks getting repossessed.
Absolutely. Right. There's no way. So
that's why I paid cash for my truck.
So you asked if there's a way to do this ahead of time. There kind of is. Do you have any friends that have a load board account with either DAT or Truck Stop?
I've got a friend of mine. He's been in the business for 60 years. I'll ask him because he's starting to shut down as a retiree. I'll ask him if his boards are still up and running.
If he does,
are you saying I should take a look?
Absolutely. Use his account.
Oh, yeah.
And Truck Stop, I have a big partnership with Truck Stop. They're probably rolling over now because they're not wild about this kind of stuff. But look, come on. This is not that big of a deal. You're going to get his login. You're going to look through. You're going to search for the kind of freight in the lanes you're looking for. It doesn't take long to figure out, oh, look, this broker keeps coming up in these searches. Well, let's call that broker and start building a relationship with them, because if they have that kind of freight that they're posting to the board, they have that kind of freight that never makes it to the board, and they give it to their best carriers.
Gotcha. Okay. I will start looking into this. I'm stepping out of my truck. I'm walking into the office right now.
Okay.
I appreciate. I will look into this stuff.
You're welcome.
I'm going to try to not make the same mistakes I've made before, and I appreciate you taking my call.
Well, first off, Daryl, sounds to me like you've done an awful lot of things right. We all make mistakes. That's how we learn. But I think you've got this going on, and I think you'll get this figured out.
I don't know. You'd have me in the woodshed if you knew how I got to where I'm.
People might be surprised if they knew.
That's all right.
Yeah, that's all right. People might be surprised.
Kevin would have had me in a woodshed too, so that's all right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I am trying, but my beginnings
Good.
were in the projects of South Central Los Angeles, so I'm new to business.
Well, you are doing fantastic based on what I'm hearing. Then just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
I will.
All right.
And thank you for your show.
Yeah, call me back soon.
Yep.
Let's.
Kevin, you were.
Go ahead.
Kevin, you were bringing up about real estate. There's something I'm noticing real heavy, and I noticed it right before 2008 when that big deal happened. There is a lot of large tracts of real estate seeming like they're going up for sale.
Yeah.
Where I'm seeing signs along the road that you don't normally see the volume that I'm seeing. And I was really picking up on that yesterday.
No, you're right. That's one of the signs. Lisa and I have been buying real estate here in the Gorge since we moved here about 12 years ago. And not a lot, but we look a lot. And when we find those really special deals, we're not in any hurry. We're buying mostly vacant land, and we're buying it to create vacation rentals at some point, because we're in an area that there's just never enough vacation rentals all summer long. And you can get really good prices on them here. And but we're not in a hurry. We're too busy with everything we do now. One of these days when I slow down, I'll transition into kind of managing some. Yeah, I know. I know.
when you slow down.
When I slow down, when I get some extra time.
Yeah. When I slow down too. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll
Yeah.
start turning those into vacation rentals. But I'm actually looking at the market now, and I have considered putting some of my properties up for sale. The only reason I don't, honestly, is we've only been buying really unique properties. Something that's got a little extra, maybe just one of them just has a killer view of the river. So the problem I have is I could dump them now. At some point, they will be cheaper, but I might not be able to get them back. So that's my biggest concern is it's I don't just have kind of generic properties. We bought these because we waited until we found really specific properties, and they're hard to find. So I keep getting tempted because I know that's where the market's going. I think I'm just going to sit on mine.
Kind of like when the spot market's doing good, you get tempted.
Exactly. That's a great analogy. That's exactly right. I get tempted because I see I could sell this now. I know it's going to go down, but I got to think that the odds of me getting these exact properties back could be slim to none.
Right. Go with what you know.
Yep. There you go. All right. Let's head to North Carolina. Harold, welcome.
Gentlemen, how you doing today? Kevin, you have the patience of Job with certain callers. I don't know how you do it.
mute button.
Yeah,
the mute button.
He doesn't use it very often, though, Henry.
Hey, Harold.
I'm shocked that he doesn't.
It's those tomatoes I grow.
I got a question for you, Henry, on your batteries for your air conditioner. How many do you have on that truck?
It has a total of 8. It runs off of all 8 till it gets down to a certain level. Then it drops the 4 off to save them for starting.
Okay. How many hours are you getting out of that on, say, a 90-degree night?
I don't run into a problem if I manage it right. So dead center on the temperature control is about 72 degrees. Where people mess up is they crank it all the way over cold and it's trying to get to a temperature it can't get to. And I don't run the fan past the 3rd position.
Right. Yeah, I understand the temperature management and the fan management. I've had them since 2007, my first electric air conditioner. But,
right. Yeah, they were a little rough back then.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was using a Dometic air conditioner through an inverter with 12 batteries. We switched to the AGMs and all that. But so I'm on my 3rd generation now, and I heard about this one on Kevin's show from that fellow that had the Volvo that he bought from Tom over at electricapu.com. And I finally put this one in. It's like a mini split almost. And I've got 8 batteries in here that we run on 24-volt system, and then I've got the 4 truck batteries. But on the car carrier, it works really good for me because I use my hydraulic pump on the 24-volt system, and we charge them through a VICTRON Vitron system. It's just specific battery charger. But I ran it the other night down in Phoenix for 14 hours at 68 degrees. I was shocked, but it got my batteries as low as they've ever been. But it really worked good. I was just curious. So that'll run all night. Does it start the truck when it gets down lower to recharge them or not?
Yeah, I can set it up that way, but I don't do that because if I do, you have to leave the key on.
Sleep.
Oh, no. It does that real smoothly. But the problem is it runs the batteries down faster when you have that turned on.
Okay. I
can make it.
And I hear them going on and off all night, and I didn't know how.
Well, and what they're doing, and like a lot of them, like fleets I've dealt with, they had really high idle time, and they had to optimize idle. Well, that's because the driver was turning the air conditioning all the way to high, and the battery system can't get there, so it automatically starts the engine.
Right. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, if I have that on and my wife's along with me, because the only time I turn on the truck engine, because it takes a lot juice out of the batteries is to run the microwave. And
Right.
and I'll have optimized idle on, and I tell her, turn the air conditioning to ridiculous, and it starts up the engine. I run the microwave. Then I tell her, turn it back.
Were those AGM from the factory?
Yeah. And my last truck, which I ran to a little over 550,000, and it had the North Star batteries in it, along with solar power, which keeps them charged up during the day of the truck's parked. And I have a 115-volt refrigerator in here, dorm fridge.
Right.
With a freezer and all that on it. And I had over 5 years out of them, and they showed no signs of going bad. And
that's what I've got in here. The 24 volt was North Star, but you can't get them anymore. They sold out to Odyssey.
Oh, okay. That I didn't know. But the solar panels on mine, which on a car,
car carrier wouldn't work. Yeah.
But yeah, the solar panels, and I know from talking to the one fleet, they said just in savings on batteries and having to have trucks jumped off pays for their solar panels.
Right. I pretty much run the same schedule every day. So I've run, these guys talk about maxing out their 70 hours. I haven't done a reset in 20 years of running from California to Boston and back with 36 stops on every load. And I just, the magic number is 8 3/4 hours a day. So your last caller was a little bit off on that. He said 10 hours. 10 hours you'll run out, but 8 3/4 hour works to where you can just keep going. To me, sitting at a truck stop for 34 hours is a total waste of time. I don't know.
Well, it depends if you go do something else. I wouldn't sit there for 34 hours.
There is that, but if I'm going to take 34 hours off, I want to be at home. But
me too. But yeah, if I ran out and I'm taking 34 hours, I'm going to go find something to do.
Right. Yeah, I don't understand the logic of running hard and taking 34 hours off out on the road. I know a lot of people do.
I agree.
It's only happened to me a few times in my whole career.
I don't think I've ever done it.
I've done it just a handful of times, but really, it was because I got greedy and took that extra run to make the extra money. And if everything had gone right, I could have made the turnaround and didn't.
Shot yourself in the foot.
But most of the time when I tried to take that extra run and take it out to 3,860 miles, almost every time I've gotten it done.
Hey, Henry, those other runs, Murphy was your co-driver.
Oh, yeah. More than my co-drivers. Yep.
Yeah.
And especially when that happened in the first few hours of it, that you're like, oh, well, that didn't work. But
yeah. All right, we are going to move along because all of a sudden the calls started piling up on us again. So we're going to go to Wisconsin. Eric, welcome.
Good morning, gentlemen, or afternoon in some cases. So Tom called in with some jokes. I had some health stuff. I'll actually call next Wednesday on that. I'm running out of time here coming up to the customer. But one thing I did want to mention, if you guys hadn't seen it, I think it's a TikTok video. I actually found it on X. It's kind of funny, a little 60 or 90 second clip. But the actual title is Minnesota. Come for the late term abortion, stay because you got carjacked. And the video is hilarious. They actually show some of the rioting from the COVID times and all that garbage. And obviously, that I hate to talk crap about Minnesota because we're really no different from Wisconsin. We've got some very blue cities that are dominating our state's elections, and they've got one big city, or I should say two, that are joining, that are pretty much dominating their elections. So,
well, that people don't understand
that.
how prevalent that is. Oregon is considered a totally blue state, and in reality, the only blue part of Portland or Oregon is Portland. I mean, I'm 43 miles from downtown Portland. And this little town is like a little libertarian enclave here. I mean, it's really shocking. We have some of the typical Oregon liberals. You know, I have some neighbors, and I do my best to get along with them. But it is shocking how libertarian this area is. And the farther east you go, the more conservative the state becomes. I mean, it is Portland that keeps us blue.
Sure. Yep. Yep. And Henry is absolutely right. I don't put Trump signs in the yard or stickers on the vehicles because I think there's people are just too crazy now. They can't handle somebody thinking differently than them. And I mean, we got it in our own neighborhood, like people putting Walls Harris signs up and vote like your daughter's life depends on it. Well, I don't need some schmuck coming up and starting crap with me and my little 2-year-old boy see that, you know.
I can't believe I didn't even think of that. As soon as Henry said it, I thought, well, duh. Yeah, that is exactly I just realized. I'm looking around. I'm like, I don't see hardly any bumper stickers. I'm not seeing a lot of yard signs. And it just seemed odd. As soon as Henry said that, I thought, oh, well, duh. That's exactly what's going on. People are afraid. Who wants to deal with that?
We don't want to see their. Yep. We don't want to see the crazy come out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? And it would go either way. You know, whichever one you're for. There's crazies on both sides. No matter which one I was for,
yeah.
I wouldn't.
That's why I didn't point out either side, because I agree. It goes all way. Now, I will say that I did watch a pretty hilarious video where people they were specifically putting Trump Vance signs in their yard and then electrifying them. I thought that was kind of funny.
Oh, it looks like I got a little bit of time here, so if you don't mind, I'm just going to ask a quick health question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, before you do, hey Kevin, I got to jump off.
Okay, all right.
I got to go check in.
All right, good. Thanks.
So have a great weekend.
You too. Talk to you next week.
Yep, I know. Yep.
Go ahead, Eric.
So the other day, you had a woman call in, and she was talking about how her glucose numbers were high in the morning. And by the way, it looks like the big pharma companies have caught on, or at least the device manufacturers like Abbott, and they found a way to legalize it for anybody without a prescription, because now I don't have to pay these insane amounts for the CGMs. I can get it direct from Abbott or
yeah,
I forget the other manufacturer.
Really glad to see that. CGMs have been legal in many other countries for a long time as an over-the-counter device, and they should be an over-the-counter.
Well, hats off to companies like NutriSense and all that, because they actually showed these companies how much money can be made. I mean, that's the only reason they got into it. They saw how much money they were leaving on the table, and it sucks for the little guys, but
one of the doctors,
it's great for the consumer.
One of the doctors that I follow on X, and him and I have been talking a little bit. I think he's going to come on the show, and he has a podcast, so I think I'm going to go on his show. He just put out a tweet, and I haven't had time to talk to him about this, but I saw it the other day. He says that he will soon be selling CGMs direct for $50.
Holy smoke!
I know.
Well, I'm going to have to stay tuned. That is a killer deal.
Yeah, you have to buy a minimum of 2. So you're buying a month's worth of CGM. Each CGM lasts 14 days. So you're getting almost a month worth of CGMs for $100.
That's a good deal.
Yeah.
That is a really good deal. But my question is, and you kind of answered it with her, but so my morning glucose numbers, they're always high. They're always like 1 to 110. And I don't get it, because I eat strict ketovore 6 days of the week. I've got a cheat day. Saturday's my cheat day.
I promise you, if you went back to consuming 300 grams of carbs a day within a couple of months, you'd be back to having those 75 and 80 numbers in the morning. It is an absolute, we have documented this so many times. It's me. I'm always between 100 and 110 anymore. Every once in a while, I'll drop down to the 90s if I don't eat too late at night and I add some carbs into that last meal. Then I might get down into the 90s. But if I eat a little late in the evening and I don't add some carbs in, there's a good chance I'm going to be 107, 108 first thing in the morning.
Okay. Yeah. So there are times where, I can be in the 90s, and then my NDK coffee actually helps me every single day. It brings me down.
Exactly.
It always brings me down about 10 to 15 points.
That's another reason why we
And
know this
then
isn't a problem. The problem is we are so brainwashed into looking at numbers that were developed with a sick population, eating the wrong diet. You know the standard American diet is wrong, right? Do you have any doubt about that?
Oh, no doubt. No doubt at all.
But that is, if you eat that way, you will have those numbers that they claim are correct. You'll have a 75 in the morning, an 80. That's how you do it. Just go back to eating the standard American diet, because that's how all those numbers were developed, by people eating a very poor diet and they're not healthy. And then we try to use those same ranges. We shouldn't.
Well, the thing that concerns me is I have listened to a couple books and some podcasts with doctors that say that there was a study, I think, done in Sweden or so forth. They say anything over 80, you're doing damage to your internals.
Everything I've read says 140 is that number.
Okay, because that was going to be my next thing. Is, what drives me nuts is, even if I eat, like, let's just say, usually during the week, I only eat dinner. Like, I'll fast for 18 or 19 hours and then I'll only eat dinner.
That's awesome. You are doing, here's why we know this is okay. We're doing all the things we know make us healthier. And everybody who does them ends up with this high fasting blood glucose. So what that tells me is it's not high. That's where we should be when we eat the proper human diet. Now, here's something you could do. If you really wanted a number to help you understand what's going on, ask your doctor for a fasting insulin test.
Okay.
If you have high insulin in the morning, then we might need to go see why. But my guess is you're going to have low fasting insulin, and that's exactly what we want. The insulin is every bit as damaging as the blood sugar.
Okay. So during the day, if I, maybe a day or two, I might get, I don't know, ravishly hungry or whatever. I might have like a Paleo Valley beef stick, maybe string cheese or something like that, and some macadamia nuts.
Yeah.
And I will spike up 10 or 15 points. And does that concern you at all? Or like during my meal at night, even if it's all clean and very few carbs, I can spike up to like 125, never usually over 135. That's probably the peak.
You are describing my blood sugar patterns almost to a T.
Okay. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great.
Almost any meal, unless it was pure fat, is going to raise your blood sugar. If it's pure fat, it probably won't. If there's protein, protein will raise our blood sugar. Not as much as carbohydrates, but it will raise our blood sugar. Carbohydrates will raise our blood sugar even more. I am over the moon happy if I just never show up with anything over 140.
Awesome. Well, then I'm right there. I was worried about those spikes. When I do eat, that it'll spike good. It'll be a big spike, but it comes right back down. It comes screaming right back down.
Yeah, and I would even change your wording on that. 15 points is not a spike. 60 points is a spike.
Oh, okay.
I know people who can eat a moderate carbohydrate meal and go from 85 to 220.
Okay. Excellent. All right. Well, that answers everything. Thank you very much. I appreciate everything.
You're welcome. Thanks for the call. Let's go to Kentucky this time. Brian, welcome.
Hey, Kevin. Thank you for taking my call.
What's on your mind today?
Just some real quick history. I've been listening to you off and on for, gosh, I don't know, 8 or 9 years. There's been a few times that I have taken priority over my health, and I just want you to know that you've been very instrumental in that decision making. I'll be 57 in 3 months. Um, if it's bad for you, I'm addicted to it. Um, 3 years and 29 days ago, I walked out of inpatient treatment center of 39 days for alcoholism, and I have not picked up a drink since. I just wanted to mention that to you, but
Congratulations.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's a
But
big
I have
deal.
drank and smoked. I have drank and smoked cigarettes the majority of my life, starting at the age of 13. Um, when I walked out the doors of that treatment center 3 years and basically 1 month ago, I followed some advice that you gave me as well as others, and I ate meat, cheese, and eggs. I drank water, black coffee, and unsweet tea religiously for right at 11 months, and I lost, I think it was like 108 pounds.
Wow.
I
Wow.
felt fantastic. Now I have fallen back into some, the standard American diet.
Okay.
I never got off the cigarettes, but I obviously am still sober.
Good.
God
Good.
removed the obsession and compulsion to drink. So what I wanted to bring you up to speed, 13 days ago, I quit smoking. This past Monday, I started the carnivore diet, I guess, and what I did is Sunday at home, I browned 3 pounds of ground beef that I bought at the grocery store
Okay.
that came from a farm, Kentucky Proud Farm, that, according to the package, was grass fed as well as grass finished. So I browned that at home and I put it in the refrigerator. And once a day, every day this week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I had a serving of ground beef with some Redmond salt. I found that. I
Excellent.
got that last
Good.
weekend, with some pepper, and I added a couple of tablespoons of, I guess, the highest quality butter I could find at my grocery store.
Okay.
And I heat it up in the microwave, and that's what I've eaten. I've had black coffee and water. I haven't had anything else to drink. Today, because I ran out of food, I stopped at a truck stop and I got 4 scrambled eggs and 6 slices of bacon
Excellent.
and a glass of water.
Yeah.
And I just want you to know that, because I listened to the show on Wednesday with Lori, which, by the way, was a great show. She's amazing.
Yeah.
When you made the comment that you've had, you've got clients and people who listen to the show and stuff. If I'm doing a carnivore diet, or if that's what this week has been so far, I believe it or not, and since Monday, I can tell a difference.
Good.
My stomach does not seem as bloated. It almost maybe has seemed to have flattened a little bit.
It does.
Another thing I noticed this week, which is really weird, for years, well, other than, I guess, when I did the meat, cheese, and eggs thing 3 years ago, at least from what I remember, like clockwork, around 8 o'clock every morning. It doesn't matter what I've eaten, what I haven't eaten, meaning the standard American diet.
Right.
I always get nauseous.
Okay.
Um,
I can tell you
it
what
goes
that is.
away. I was going to say it goes away quickly. It never hangs around, but that has not happened this week since Monday. Not once this
No, I'll tell
morning
you.
have I felt nauseous.
I'll tell you what's probably happening then. When we move to a higher protein, higher fat diet and less carbs, nausea can be a side effect. And what it's telling us is our digestion is compromised. you have weaker stomach acid and poor bile flow. So when you have weak stomach acid, protein is hard to digest, so that will cause nausea. When you have poor bile flow or no gallbladder is even worse, then you can't digest fats, and that can make you nauseous. So what's happened over time by eating a more nutritious diet, you start to rebuild your own stomach acid. You start to get better bile flow. We can jumpstart those processes with supplements, but it's not always necessary. And it sounds to me like you were just
Right.
getting enough good nutrition that you are now able to digest these higher fat and protein amounts without getting nauseous.
Now, I wanted to mention to you too. Last weekend, I ordered the Cardio Miracle from you guys, and according to tracking, that will be at my house on Monday. I'm actually off on Monday, so that'll be good that I'll be there not only to start it on Monday, but to take it with me when I go back out,
Yeah,
for the
good.
remainder of the week,
Good.
driving. Um, and is there, I guess what I really wanted to ask, first of all, what I have done so far this week with like the ground beef and the butter and the salt, is that okay? I mean, I brown it
Absolutely.
at home, put it in Tupperware, heat it up in a
Absolutely.
microwave. I
Sure.
mean, I'm sure that I can eventually get burnt out on that, but I mean, I like that. I like the taste of it. I'm a beef kind of guy.
Keep doing it.
Another thing I was going to, yeah, another thing I was going to mention to you too is at my grocery store, they carry a packaged smoked salmon fillet. I I'm not for sure where the company's out of. I'm thinking they might be from out west. I've actually had them before. It's cooked, it's smoked, and they're big fillets. They're like $10 a piece. Um, and of course, they recommend just taking it out of the refrigerator of the package, letting it sit, 10, 15 minutes for optimum taste, and then just eat it.
Yeah.
Is that okay to throw that in there next week?
Sure. Absolutely. It'd be an awesome addition.
Oh, okay. Do you think that I should stay completely? I guess what I'm trying to ask is there any, based on the history that I've given you, is there anything that you think I should add to what I'm doing? I mean, obviously, I don't want sugar and I don't want carbs unless you say something like, well, if it was me, I think
It,
maybe 2 times a week you should have a bowl of white rice, or
so here's
I
here's
don't know. That's why I'm
no,
asking.
and it's a good question. And here's the only way I can answer that. This is one of those areas. We have this concept we call bio individuality, meaning that every human being is not an exact copy of other human beings. We're all a little different. For a while, we leaned on that a little too heavy, thinking that you could get really, like, some people need to have far more carbs in their diet. That's how we kind of used that. It turns out that's not really true. There's some truth to it, but it's not as extreme as that. Um, Most of us, well, no, all of us respond to a lower carb diet than the standard American diet, and we get improvements. Everybody does. Everybody sees improvements when we eliminate processed foods. Everybody sees improvements when we eliminate things like foods with high glyphosate and gluten and grains. Everybody does better. Every human being. Now, when we get down to the nitty gritty, and I just talked about this earlier, I know people. In fact, in a couple weeks, I think I'm going to have a woman on the show who had, oh, can I even remember the number? 20 some diagnoses of physical diseases and 6 diagnoses of mental diseases. She was an absolute wreck. She was almost dead. And she's been suffering with this for decades. She now eats strict pure carnivore, and the results have been incredible.
Wow.
Many of these people stay on very strict carnivore for long periods of time and they thrive. I can't do really strict carnivore for more than about a week. A week is pushing it.
Well,
I
you
I,
mentioned,
I start to
yeah,
come
you
off the
mentioned
rails.
that to the,
Yeah.
to the previous caller. I didn't mean to interrupt,
No, that's
but
okay.
in the short time this week, my energy level, that really kind of hit me last night. I really I was very restless. I mean, I felt fine. I'm just
Right.
like, this ELD's killing me because I could drive for 500 more miles. I'm like, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
So
like, I'm ready to go.
at some point for me,
I also,
I need to add carbs back in so that I can rest and sleep. If I don't, it's like I'm like a college kid on Adderall. I mean, I talk too
right.
much. I talk too fast. I know it. I have too much energy. I drive people crazy around me. I can't sleep right. And I have to add the carbs back in. And then when I do, I kind of start to settle down a little bit and I can, function again. I mean, it gets to the point where, like I said, by the time I got to the CMC last year, I think it was almost delirious. But I still felt fantastic. I mean, I had all this energy, and I'm talking like crazy, and I'm running around like a nut. But I was sleeping 3 hours a night, and
Yeah.
so what I would say is experiment. Experiment
Okay. Okay.
and try
You know,
different things and see what your results are, and then you'll kind of find that place where you feel best.
and I will, and I think my big fear, of course, where I've just started this is doing something not necessarily that would be detrimental. I mean, obviously, I know going and eating, 6 Reese cups isn't what I need to do, or enriched white bread and bologna. I just didn't want to do something, uh, that I really didn't need to do. I also, on a different note, wanted to mention to you too, Kevin, is I have been on some sort of antidepressant for about 23 years. Most of that time was on Prozac.
Prozac, okay,
And
right.
now it, you, mainly, I mean, I think there's some depression or was that type of thing, but what I really struggle with, and it is heavy from what I understand on my deceased father's side of the family, is anger. I mean, my anger can go to rage like really, really quick.
Got it.
And that seemed to be very well managed for, 23 years. So getting up to speed here, about 4 months ago, I just was really, really restless, irritable, and discontent. And I haven't really felt that way for a long time, for a long period of time.
Right.
It just didn't seem to go away. So I just basically woke up one day and said, I'm just done with medication. I'm done with it. Maybe the chemical imbalance in my brain isn't what it used to be. Maybe it's not working anymore, et cetera, et cetera. So I weaned myself off of it. And that was about 4 months ago. And I swear I feel better coming off of that
I am
stuff. I don't feel
positive
like
you
a
do.
roller coaster.
Yeah.
I don't feel like a roller coaster. The mood swings. I mean, sure, every day's not perfect and I've got my struggles, but I feel more normal. I can feel emotion.
Congratulations.
I can cry. Yeah, I mean, I can
Congratulations
cry having a
for
conversation
taking
with my.
control of your own health and doing that. And also congratulations on successfully doing it. It's not easy. Those are tough drugs to get off of. But I'm glad you did, and you are exactly correct. Those drugs were making up a little bit for a very, very poor diet that we all ate. And most people find over time that those drugs aren't nearly as effective, and then doctors will put you on a different one, and they never solve any real problems. They do make some people feel better and help them manage some of those emotions. But once you started eating properly, your gut bacteria got better. 80% of those chemicals in your brain are produced in your gut by bacteria.
So mental health has a great deal to do with what we put in our body.
Everything to do with everything.
And if you've mentioned that before, you probably have. I did not really actually know that.
That is something new in about the last 12 months. It's been about the last 12 months. I read a book. I interviewed a couple doctors that are psychiatrists, psychologists. So that's been about the last year. We've really been saying that all of these mental health issues are metabolic, just like heart disease, just like diabetes, just like kidney disease. They're all metabolic diseases. We are feeding our brain very poorly. When we start feeding our brain properly, all these issues go away and the drugs just aren't necessary. I read a post by one of those doctors just this morning on X, and he said, by far, the biggest mistake I have made in my career is not understanding how diet influences mental health.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Well, I am very excited about this journey. I'm glad that I've been blessed with the gift of desperation and hope to try to get
good for you
healthier.
Yes.
You know, and it's not easy, but I know that it will get easier. It's not easy. It's simple.
Correct.
But, you know, we
That's
all
right.
know
Yep.
it is simple, but
it's hard.
there's a difference. It doesn't. One other thing, and then I'll jump off of here. I know as I continue to do this, or at least I think, anyways, based on my past experience, craving sweets will become a lot less.
Correct.
I'm sure.
Yep.
But when I do, is there something in your all store that might, you know, I don't know, some kind of nut butter or dark chocolates or?
Yeah, we have several things in the store, really, and we pick these products out specifically to be as clean as they can possibly be, but give us that little hit of sweetness. You know, our body craves sweet. See, it's the only flavor our humans really crave. And we crave it because it can be beneficial, and in nature, it's so rare. So we are programmed to seek it out, but it's really hard to find in nature. The mismatch, the disconnect comes from we still seek out sweet as humans, and now it's everywhere. Now there's a trend in the United States. We are now making savory food sweet. There's a whole thing about putting honey on pizza. I mean, we are making all of our food sweeter because it is a natural craving and it's just everywhere. We don't understand how destructive it is. Most people don't. So we do bring products into the store.
The more I eat, the more I crave it.
Correct. So we do bring products into the store, and they're only in the store if I would eat them. And I'll tell you two of them, my absolute favorite. Jerry's listening, I'm sure. We have a product called Monkey Brittle. Do you like bananas?
I do. I've heard of it, and it's been recommended, but I still haven't tried it yet.
So if you like bananas or
And
banana
yes,
bread,
I love bananas.
This is like crunchy banana bread. It is and it has 4 ingredients: bananas, raisins, and 2 kinds of nuts. That's it. Those are the only 4, and they're all organic, and it's never cooked. It's a raw product. So we have all the enzymes are still there. It's a living food. It is sweet. You really don't want to sit down and eat a whole bag of it, but a nice, pretty good sized chunk of it is really satisfying and really hits that sweet tooth. If you want to take it up a notch, we do have a nut butter, a maple cinnamon almond butter that the taste.
I saw that.
If you put a little bit of that on that monkey brittle, it might be like the best dessert I've ever eaten in my life. And it's really clean. Other than the carbs, it's really healthy. And if you can afford the carbs, and once we start to get healthy, we can. It's one of my favorite treats. And it, you know, it really feels like a treat too. You know, we got to the point in this country where dessert became just normal, and most of the snacks we eat are just as sweet as dessert. And it got to the point where does any of that stuff even feel like a treat anymore? It's just we just eat it all day. It's not special. You know, when I grew up, dessert was special. You didn't do it every night. You didn't do it that often at all. When you did, it was kind of a big thing, and you really enjoyed it. That's kind of the way I treat that stuff now. For me now, my sweet every day is a little bit of fruit. I'll eat a banana, a handful of grapes, kiwis, stuff like that. I love fruit, and fruit today is pretty sweet. So that's my kind of, everyday kind of sweet treat. Once in a while,
Right.
I'll do that monkey brittle with the nut butter, and that to me seems like a decadent dessert.
So if I do that and don't overdo it, like you said, sit down and eat a bag once
Right.
I open it up, and just try to take a bite or two, maybe add a little bit of the maple cinnamon nut butter to it.
Right.
I'm not jeopardizing what I'm
No.
trying to do, I
No.
guess is what I mean, you don't think I
Now,
need to wait a month or two or anything like that?
no, I
Because
wouldn't.
if you think I'm safe,
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, this is something I've done kind of from the beginning. I never went in 100% over long periods of time. I always, enjoyed some of the foods I know I can enjoy. You're still going to make tons and tons of progress. So I think sometimes these things can help. Now, I will say this. If you sit down and you start eating it, and in your mind you say, I'm only going to eat, this one piece that I just took out of the bag, and the next thing you know, the bag is gone. Well, then stop doing it. Just don't buy that anymore. Don't keep
right,
it around. If you can't, and
right.
some people just can't, and maybe it will take longer and then you'll be able to do it later. So if you try and it's just a struggle to not eat the rest of the bag and it's all you can think about, then don't buy that stuff. Just keep it away from you for a while.
Sure. Well, and that makes sense, and I'm glad that you put it that way. It's you know, it's I've had a few ups and downs this week with with putting the cigarettes down, doing a drastic change on the diet compared to what I normally eat during the week. It's like, I mean, I have a lot of faith, yes, and I'm determined, but it's almost like it's it's like in the back of my head, it's like, are you trying to set yourself up for failure? I mean, it's like, don't you think you're trying a little too much all at once? But then again, I mean, I'm here talking to you today on Friday, almost 5 days later, and I feel like I'm in a good spot,
Good.
mentally and
Yep. Good.
physically and the way that I feel. And yeah, so
Here's the good news,
all right,
Brian.
well, awesome.
We're going into our 10th year of this. I am still gaining new benefits after 10 years. But if we think about
Yeah,
it, I spent 52 years eating all the wrong stuff and doing all that damage.
right, right.
So the
Yeah, we share that.
yeah,
We
so
share that. We share that in common. One other thing, when you're talking about the benefits, when I told you I could already see some results in such a short period of time, like you were talking about on Wednesday, that other people have experienced. I noticed this morning when I went into our service center break room and got cleaned up a little bit. I've got horrible bags and puffiness under my eyes, and those were even down.
isn't that awesome?
And yeah, I looked in the mirror and I was like, look at my eyes. They're not even as puffy.
Yep. Oh, I've made the comment when I go to these health conferences, you start to realize pretty quickly the people you're spending time with at these conferences just look healthier than everybody else. I mean, you can visually see it.
Right.
All right,
Yeah.
Brian, good
Yeah.
stuff.
Well,
Got to cut you loose. I got a couple more calls I got to get through here. We're just about out of time. Call back. I want to hear all your updates. Let's go to Oklahoma. Paul, what's on your mind?
Howdy. I got a couple of comments now and a question. So, if it's the same video that I'm thinking of about Minnesota, I don't find it hilarious at all. I'm quite outraged at it, actually, that happens in this country.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't think it's hilarious.
That's a
Yeah.
good point. I think sometimes for me, because I spend so much time in this, I spend too much time in this. Sometimes for me, I have to laugh or I'll either cry or shoot somebody.
So, but I can a lot of people think it's funny, but I don't. So
yeah, well, sometimes
so,
humor helps us get through the worst of things.
Yeah. So yesterday, I pull into the Petro in West Memphis to get fuel, and it's like, what the hell's that squealing? And it's like, oh, it's my inverter going off. So I turned it off, and I pumped fuel. I put the hood up, and I had a little coolant leak that I sort of knew about. I was just checking on it, and it's like, oh, that hose clamp's bad. I need to replace it. So I did that at the fuel island, and I shut the truck off and replaced that hose clamp. Then when I went to start the truck, click, click, click. Oh shit! And I'm loaded, so long jumper cables, as my friend did it off a Volkswagen, and got going. And then I head west. Well, my alternator was only running at 12, and then it got dark. I turned the lights on and everything. By the time I got over to Little Rock, I'm well below 12, and it's like, I better go and seek help.
Yes.
So I called the Peterbilt dealer. Oh, no, we're getting ready to close. Oh, okay, see you. Went to Kenworth. Their labor rate is $244 an hour, but I said, well, I needed to check my alternator and my batteries. So he checks it, everything. The alternator's fine. He said the cable was a little loose on it. We tightened that, but your batteries are toast. Oh, okay. Well, how much are batteries? Oh, they're about $90 each. Yeah, carry on. Put them in. Well, then he gives me the bill. It's $1,400, $1,444. I said,
yikes!
How'd it get to be $1,400 plus?
Yeah.
And he said, well, you got 950 cold crank amps. He says, they're $180 each. Oh, okay. And then $244 an hour for labor and diagnosis and all this shit. But
wait a minute. How many cold cranking amps are his $90 batteries?
Oh, no, I didn't ask that. But
well, because the reason I'm asking is,
so stuck it in there.
Is 950 is not high. I mean, that's a good number, but it's not.
So I didn't.
I'm wondering why they quoted $90. What kind of battery that was?
Oh, no, 12 volt, 9 volt, sticky tongue on it, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, 1100. I mean, you can buy cold cranking lead acid batteries with 1100, 1150. 950 is nothing extraordinary.
Yeah. So, but the good news is I was in and out of there in 3 hours. And that included dropping my trailer and hooking it back up. So,
well, there you go.
Choice of trucking.
Yeah, there you go.
So, but another customer that was in there, I got parts of the story. He'd got stuck earlier in the week, and he thought he'd damaged his rear end, which he had, one of them. And he says, I'm not sure, and he was a company driver. He said, I'm not sure if I'll have a job tomorrow morning. And he said, but I can go sleep in the truck. And the guy says, yeah, we pushed it out of the bay. Your rear end's toast. And he says, well, my boss ain't going to be happy in the morning when you tell him it's $17,000 to put another rear end in it. And it's like, how the hell can a rear end, one rear end, be $17,000?
Yeah. Yeah, that
just
seems
outrageous.
That seems a little extreme.
Yeah. That sounds like it's the axles, the housing, the rear end.
Yeah.
Or two of them, maybe. I don't know. But
yeah. And while they're installing it, I want 2 masseuses giving me a massage for that price.
Yeah, and 8 brand new Michelins.
Yeah. Exactly.
So you mentioned earlier, or someone mentioned earlier, about the Cardio Miracle and vitamin D about helping against kidney stones. Did I hear that right?
Yes.
Okay, I'll have to get my wife on that because the last few years she's been battling kidney stone problems. So he thinks he's got them all blowing up, but
but we have
too much Coca-Cola with her rum.
Yeah, we have to figure out what was causing them, and what causes them is not, we have too much calcium in our body. Although her doctor might tell her bones are weak and she doesn't have enough calcium, and it'll actually give her a calcium supplement, which will make things worse. It's not that we don't have enough
Well, she's
calcium.
not
It's
taking
not.
any of that. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the fact that the calcium is going all the places we don't want it to be. It's in our heart, it's in our arteries, it's in our kidneys, it's in our gallbladder. It doesn't belong there, and it causes problems. But it's not the calcium. It's all the other cofactors that once you get those in balance, then the calcium goes back to your bones where it's nice and strong, and you don't get buildups that cause other problems.
I guess I'll have to stop sharing my cardio miracle with her. So.
There you go.
I got her on. I got her. She wanted to do the collagen supplement that I do. She says, "Oh, my skin's getting thick." So
there, get her some bone broth. Have her drink Cardio Miracle in the morning, bone broth in the afternoon. We'll see lots of improvements.
Okay, I'll give it a shot. Okay,
there you go. Talk to you soon. Let's go to North Carolina. Jed, welcome.
Hey, it's Chad. How are you?
Chad. All right. What's on your mind? I'm doing
Yeah.
good.
Hey, I got a question. I want your intake. All right.
All right.
I'm ordering a new truck. It's going to be a 25 589 with an X15 605 2050 torque. It's going to be sitting on 22.5 low pro Michelin. I haul reefer now, but in the future, I'm thinking about getting a step deck. The rear end that they told me would be feasible for both would be a 325. What's your take?
If you gave me this truck, I would sell it and buy something else.
Okay. I haven't ordered it yet. I've only spec'd it.
Is fuel economy important to you?
No, I run around 65 to 70 anyways. So it's kind of important, but not,
really?
Break all.
Really? Your single biggest cost isn't important to you?
Well, of course it's important.
Well, you
but
just told me it's
I'm
not
doing
really
pretty
all
good
that
with my fuel economy now.
Well, tell me what your number is.
Right now I'm at high 8.
Okay, so that's not bad. That's respectable. There's a good chance this truck will not get high 8s. This truck you're about to order, I'd be shocked if it got high 8s.
And well, I could also go with the 565, but there was just $1,000 difference between the 605 and the 565. But then I would have to do different gearing.
Well, there's nothing about this gearing I'm excited about.
No.
What
So
transmission is this?
Hey, it's gonna be a Eaton Fuller 18 speed.
Have you ever owned it? Do you have an 18 speed now?
I got a 12-speed automatic, but I was in a 10-speed.
So have you ever owned an 18 speed?
And now, never.
Have you ever driven one?
Yep, but I've never owned one.
When you drove it, how many gears did you actually split?
Just the top end.
So why do you want it? Why would you buy an expensive, heavy transmission that you're not going to use?
Well, like I said, further down the road, I wanted to get in a step deck.
So you think
But
when
right
you're
now,
on a
I'm
step
only
deck,
running
you're going to
reefer.
split the bottom gears in an 18 speed?
Probably not.
No, not probably.
At least
not.
I know
Why
I
would
have
you?
them.
Why would you? 600 horsepower, all kinds of torque, and we're going to get 18 gears that will never split most of them. Honestly, on most loads, I don't even know why you would split anything except the last gear.
Yeah, that's true. So what would be your take on it then?
I would be,
Which way would
mean, you're asking personal preference. I'm not saying we couldn't spec this truck better. You could. My personal preference would just be to start all over. I'm not a fan of the X15.
Yeah.
It's got a horrible history. It's had major problems. They fix one, we end up with another one. I could go back through the history of cams being wiped out, fuel pumps coming apart, exploding, taking the engine with them, the fuel filters clogging and creating problems. This has been a problem engine, in my opinion. It's never been outstanding for fuel economy. If we get everything else right, we can get good fuel economy out of it, but not what I consider great. These specs are just not what I would spec at all. I would be looking at a totally different driveline.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't order the truck. I've only spec'd it out on paper, so everything can be changed.
Yeah. So tell me about the truck you're in right now. And is this your truck? The one you're driving now, is it yours?
Yes, it's mine. It's mine.
Tell me about it.
It's a 22 579. It's got the PACCAR MX-13 with the DT12 platform on it.
Yeah, and it's getting high eights. That's pretty impressive. I don't
Yeah,
think this
but it's
truck
only.
It's what?
Yeah, I've had too many issues with this truck. I've been in Peterbilt over 20 times, and I'm working right now with Peterbilt Corporate to kind of compensate on this new truck. They're gonna, I guess, put a stife, whatever you want to call it, on the new truck, or help with lead assistance on this, seeing that I've had so much issues with it.
What are all the
I'm just
issues?
waiting to hear back from them.
What are all the issues?
Well, first I've had 6 brand new injectors put in. I had the MTM replaced in it with the transmission out. I've had electrical issues.
Go back.
I've had my DTF.
Did you say MTM?
Yeah, it's
What's that?
a mechanical transmission module. It's where these 2 bolts inside the transmission back out and they leak air because the transmission's actuated by air.
Okay, and then you've had
They had to put a whole brand new.
So those were all kind of engine driveline issues. So that's not really Peterbilt per se right now. But then you had a bunch of electrical issues. That is Peterbilt. So one of my questions: why are we going back to buy another Peterbilt?
Well, I don't want the engine. I've had issues with the engine. The engine is the most stickler on me. I mean, the Peterbilt truck itself has been fine. It's just the engine. I literally just had 3 lines crack on me a couple of weeks ago and leaked fuel all over. Line coming from the fuel pump to the fuel rail, and then 5 and 6 injector line cracked, which spewed fuel all down.
Here's part of my issue and why I said I would start all over. When you're buying a PACCAR product, and I have always praised PACCAR for their quality. They're one of the better quality trucks, always have been, no doubt about that. But at some point, I would not even consider PACCAR products, and this is why. Your only choices are the PACCAR engine, which we have a lot of problems with. I think it could be a good engine. It's just not here in this country yet. Or the X15 or the Cummins. And I'm just not a fan of the Cummins. So it's hard for me to get excited about trying to spec one of these trucks because I just don't. I see other platforms that are, in my opinion, just so much better.
What do you think about the new Volvo?
Love them.
That new Volvo. B&L.
I mean, any of the Volvos since about 2015 or so. Volvo engine, Volvo driveline, all of it. I think it's probably the best value on the market.
All right. Well, like I said, I wanted to get your take on like the gearing, because they said that 325s kind of told him where I was running, and he said it would compensate with the low pros on it.
Compensate
so you're not
for
running
what?
at that high RPM.
Well, no, you're still going to be
torque.
What's the final gear ratio on that 18-speed? Probably 0.73, right?
Your guess is I couldn't tell you. I'm just going by what
I am kind of guessing. The traditional 18 speeds are typically a 0.73 or a 0.74. With 325s and low pro 22.5s, you're not getting your RPM down very low.
Now, he said they usually come stock 336s. And he said you can go that route.
Well, that's worse. We're going the wrong way. But 325 isn't much of an improvement over 336s. You know, in the Volvo driveline, we're down into the low 2s, like 207, 208, and we're about to start speccing some 190 gears in those trucks.
Really?
Yeah. And you can run these engines down the road loaded at 900 RPM.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah. That's the difference. You can't do that with an X15. It's not built to do that. And they won't put the gears in that would allow you to do it.
Yeah. All right. Well, like I said, I just wanted to see, and I'm still debating on whether that's the gearing. But like you said, there's other options.
If you want to do a deeper dive where I would show you the charts and the graphs and compare and show you why this is a better way. I mean, we spent quite a bit of time here, but we haven't got down to any details. We do that really in depth in the coaching program. So you could join the coaching program at $75 a month. Yeah, and you can start and stop anytime you want. You're only committed to a month at a time. But I do a coaching call every Thursday. And you could submit details about your operation and what you're trying to accomplish. And then I would go run a couple different specs and bring you some options and say, here's why I would spec the truck this way, and this is what it's going to do, and here's how it'll perform. Because I have more time. And when we do the coaching calls, they're on a Zoom call, so I can even show you documents and calculations and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I can find that on Let's Truck.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, I'll look into it. But I know you're getting ready to get out of here, so
yep.
That's all I had for today.
All right.
Thanks.
Good talking to you. Let's final call of the day. Billy, you get the last word. What's on your mind today?
Hey, Kevin. Thanks for taking my call. I got a question for you. I'm driving an old Maverick truck now. It's a 14 model, and I'm looking to upgrade. And I was looking at some old Prime trucks. I say they're old. It's like 22 models. And the difference between them and the Maverick trucks that are on the market right now, the Mavericks has got the 2.28 rear ends, and the Primes have got 2.15. And I was wondering how big a difference that would make in fuel economy.
Again, it's that trend. We keep going to higher and higher ratios, lower numbers, because it works. It's kind of like in health, we just kept going lower and lower carb, and we kept getting better and better results. And it's kind of the same thing with these gear ratios. We're pushing limits, and we keep improving things. Those two ratios are fairly close. And it's really hard to make a prediction. I could say in some operations, this gear set would actually do better. And in other operations, this gear set would do better. But there's so many variables, and those two are kind of close. I don't know if it's all that critical.
I got you.
And it would. Here's what it wouldn't do. It certainly wouldn't stop me from buying that truck. It's probably an improvement.
All right. The 2.15, right?
Right.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Well, I appreciate you taking my call, and thanks for all you do, man.
You're welcome. Thanks for the call. All right. We went a little over today. Long show. We're going to get out of here. We will, I was about to say we'll see you tomorrow, but today's Friday already. We will see you on Monday. Have a great weekend. Be safe, be profitable, be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master the journey.